And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive, everybody. Friday, November 15th. I'm Josh Engleman. I'm joined by DK. We're brought to you by us. Sign up for Stokastic using the link in the description of this video. 12 games on the docket, 10 if you're playing on DraftKings, and no Nikola Jokic tonight. The Denver Nuggets going to look a little bit different than they normally do. And congrats to Jokic and his wife. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live, and follow us both on Twitter. DK, what's good?
Not much. My tooth fell out earlier, so I had to go to the dentist, get that crown put back on. But yeah, now that that's all good, ready to grind some NBA DFS. We got a big slate, and obviously the Jokic news is huge, so that's kind of the key to it. But yeah, ready to talk some basketball.
Yeah, the crown falling off is such a weird feeling because you're just like, why is there a rock in my mouth?
Half my tooth is gone. Okay, yeah.
You're just like, don't swallow, don't swallow, don't swallow,
Exactly.
don't swallow, don't swallow. Yeah. It's because then you don't want to have to be like, all right, well, I'm gonna go drink a water and barf this tooth back up into a place that I can get it back out of.
Yep. I was like, spit it out. I'm like, wait, I'm gonna need that tooth.
Yeah, they're not cheap either. So you definitely don't want to lose it or break it or do anything weird to it. So glad you got that handled. And now we're here getting ready to break down a big one. And some of these spots are disgusting. Some of these spots are pretty appealing. And then there's like a wealth of spots where it's just like, oh God, all these dudes are 10% and I don't know what to do. So what we're going to do right now is break it all down. We're going to start it off. Miami, 4.5 point dogs in Indiana. 228.5 total. No Jimmy Butler here for the Heat. And I'm guessing we're going to get Nikola Jokic in a mask with that broken nose. Shout out to Greg and I for having a 4-minute conversation about Nikola Jokic's nose while it got broken. You good?
Why is my Bluetooth?
What do you need from me?
I can't hear Josh right now.
That's probably a good thing. I'll keep talking. So Miami, no Jimmy Butler. We've got 15% ownership coming into Bam Adebayo on DraftKings. That's 28 on FanDuel. He's very highly ranked for me there. Only 7,900 in center only.
What is going on?
Around 20% ownership coming into Tyler Hero across both sites. And then 25% ownership coming into Terry Rozier on the FanDuel side. 5,700 point guard, shooting guard eligible. Not nearly as owned on DraftKings, where he only has point guard eligibility and sub 10% ownership. After those guys, I think it's really hard to get to anything from Miami. You could take a flyer on someone like Haywood Highsmith, but he's really not the best per minute fantasy performer that exists. So it gets a little tough to want to prioritize anything else here from Miami. You don't really know who's going to get that big old minutes bump. Maybe it's Jaquez, maybe it's not. But it's those first three guys. It's the Bam, the Hero, and the Rozier trio that I think we want to pay closest attention to. You know, Bam, Hero is sort of a coin flip to me on DraftKings. They're very different plays from a position standpoint. You've got that MPE for point guard, shooting guard on Hero. That makes him a little bit easier to get to. But obviously, Bam has a sizable ceiling at center, even at an $8,200 price tag. So I see those guys as like relatively equal. And then Rozier is sort of a clear step behind. On the FanDuel side, I actually prefer Bam to Hero. The center spot is just a little bit different on FanDuel. You have to have one. The fact that he's getting the ownership makes a lot of sense to me. He was my highest optimal guy of anybody on the FanDuel side for Miami. Are you able to hear me now?
I am. Yeah. I don't know what's going on. Maybe the incognito browser with the AirPods. I don't know, but like it randomly just cut out. So can you hear me?
Yeah. I can hear you perfectly.
Okay. Cool.
What are your thoughts on Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, and Terry Rozier for the Miami Heat today?
Yeah, so pretty good matchup here against the Pacers. Tyler Hero in the 2 games without Jimmy Butler has a 27.5% assist percentage and 31.6% usage rate. He's played extremely well, so like the upside on him. Bam Adebayo getting about 15% ownership at 8.2K. I think it's a pretty decent option. The minutes have ticked way up on Bam recently, 39, 39, and then 44 minutes last game. That game went to overtime. So basically 3 straight games of 39 minutes there for Bam and Adebayo. Rozier, again, the rates have not been as good on him. I think he's like playable, but I would rather get to Hero and Bam Adebayo. So yeah, I think that the 2 main guys here for Miami look pretty good. The rest of the Heat, though, I think it's kind of hard to get to them just with the way that they're running the rotation. But I think, yeah, both Bam and Hero are pretty good plays.
Well, that's pretty much everything I said that you couldn't hear. So that's perfect. We've got Miami out of the way. The Indy side, still without Aaron Nesmith, still without Andrew Nembhard. Around 25% ownership coming into Tyrese Halliburton, 20 for Mathurin on DraftKings, only 10 on FanDuel. He's a little bit more expensive there. And then about 10 for Siakam and a little bit for Miles Turner. Do you have a preference here for Indy? I could tell you this much. I'm terrified of Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Halliburton is he does get a nice assist percentage bump of Nembhard off the court. So that is a positive. Over the last couple of games, 11 and 14 assists. So the floor does go up a little bit on him, but yeah, he has just not been the same player this year. He shot 3 of 14 last game. He's been very up and down. So like, I think he's definitely in play, but I agree. Like there's still some risk there. Benedict Mathurin coming in at 6.2, probably the easiest guy to get to just because the eligibility, and he's playing huge minutes right now. The rebounding numbers are great for him too. Like over the last 5 games, 12 rebounds, 8 rebounds, 6 rebounds, 11 rebounds, and 7 rebounds. So I think Mathurin probably the easiest guy to get to. And then Siakam and Turner both hovering around 10%. Turner's been relatively popular previous slates, not getting a ton of ownership on this slate. Not necessarily the best matchup, but he's still playing good minutes. Again, they're kind of going small ball behind him. So, he's playing mid-30s minutes usually in competitive games. And then Siakam, the last guy really to mention here, playing, good minutes as well, reasonable price point. So no real strong take on him. And then I don't think I'll get to any of the value plays here, but yeah, I think Mathurin, even though he's getting the ownership, is probably the easiest guy to get to. But yeah, Halliburton has a ceiling, but still has shown that floor too.
Yeah, I'm getting to a bit of Mathurin, a little over the field. I think he's just really easy to get to because of that positionality, as you mentioned. I've got a decent chunk of Pascal Siakam, who I had on the last slate. He played pretty well. I am quite a bit under the field on Halliburton, and I'm happy about it. I know that's going to lead to him actually making shots for once. He can't buy a bucket, and that has been incredibly frustrating. And I've been playing him a lot. So today, with the fade, chat, you should know what you should be doing here because I'm not getting to Tyrese Halliburton nearly the way the ownership is showing. Shooting 8%, relatively speaking, lower from 2. He's shooting 27% from 3 on the season. That's brutal. He's down 9% in true shooting from where I have him projected. So I did a little bit of rate tweaks. It is bringing me in a little bit lighter on him today, and I'm happy about it, but I can already see where this goes. Anything else for Indy?
No, I think we're ready to move on.
The Philadelphia 76ers are taking on the Orlando Magic in Orlando. This is a Philly 2-point dogs. 208.5 total is by a mile the lowest total on today's slate. Philly's got Embiid back. Philly's got Paul George back. They do not have Tyrese Maxey for this one. 5% ownership coming into Jared McCain on DraftKings. 11 coming into Paul George on FanDuel, where he's only $7,400. That's $900 cheaper than DK. No one else is getting anything other than 1% or less in ownership. I could see getting a couple shares of McCain on DraftKings. His price is still relatively low at $5,500, $700 cheaper than FanDuel. And I understand the Paul George play on FanDuel, but I mean, based on the pace of this game, the defense on the opposite side, the total, I don't expect to really have anything from Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty hard team to get to. A lot of these guys are priced up from like Embiid, Maxey, Paul George out. I mean, Maxey's still out, but you do have Embiid and Paul George now back. They did confirm that Paul George is no longer on a limit. However, he's 8.3K and it's a matchup against Orlando, and you have Embiid there too. So it's still kind of hard to get to him. I assume Joel Embiid's going to be on a similar limit to last game. Before last game, they said 25 to 30 minutes. He ended up playing 26. So I think he'll be in a similar range, and a 10K, really hard to get to him. A lot of these kind of like wings are priced up with like Oubre and Martin. I think I'm with the field. It's like if I had to play someone, it would be Jared McCain, who has played pretty well over the last 4 games. Yeah. But again, he had a huge game last game, but that's most likely not going to happen now that you have Paul George and Embiid there, and the price is up a little bit. So yeah, pretty unappealing team, at least on this slate.
We are waiting on the Q tag on Andre Drummond, but that shouldn't really be all that relevant for today. Just adds back in backup something run. So you redistribute some minutes, but that shouldn't really matter for the slate. The Orlando side is kind of equally as unappealing. 10% ownership coming into Goga on DraftKings. He's the only guy he's the only guy that made it to 10% because that's where he is. Everybody else is below that. Franz on FanDuel's 14% owned. Jalen Suggs is 10. I don't see a single priority from Orlando. Like if I have Franz in lineups, I'm not bummed about it. I don't mind getting Goga at 5,300 on DraftKings. He's $1,000 more expensive on FanDuel. That seems like a no Goga. I like what I did there. Do you like anything from Orlando?
I think Goga is interesting at 5.3K. I think they're going to need him out there to defend Embiid. There is some foul risk though. So that is a concern, but still a reasonable price point there for Goga. So yeah, I think he's probably the easiest guy to get to. Franz Wagner, 8.8. He has been playing out of his mind without Paolo. His rates have looked really good too, like 34% usage rate for Franz in the games without Paolo, and a 31.2% assist percentage. He's playing huge minutes. Like Orlando have been involved with a ton of blowouts, but in competitive games, like he's playing high 30s minutes. So the ceiling definitely is there for Franz, but again, the price point is up. Jalen Suggs coming in at no ownership, I think is at least a little bit interesting. He's also playing similar rotation to Franz Wagner, like in competitive games, playing high 30s minutes, played 38 minutes last game, shot 2 of 15. So I don't think you can expect that again. Also, the assist numbers have gone up for him as well. So Jonathan Isaac would probably be the last guy to mention here. He's 3.7K. He's getting a little bit of ownership. Played 22 minutes last time out. The thing with Jonathan Isaac is he's a good point per minute player. If Goga gets in foul trouble, Isaac could benefit there. So I think Isaac's at least a little bit interesting as a value option. The minutes have been, ticked up a bit on Anthony Black, but I don't think it's necessary to go to him on this slate. So that's probably it for the Magic. I'm not going to take a shot on these fringe rotation guys.
No, this is not the game that we're going to be spending a lot of time breaking down. That's for sure.
Yep.
This one's got a little bit more of a breakdown. The Detroit Pistons, 1.5-point favorites in Toronto, 224 total. We have a Q tag on Jaden Ivey. I believe he went through shoot around. Simone Fontecchio and Tim Hardaway are still both out. Not much ownership coming into Cade. I have 20%. He seems to be somebody that I am over the field on pretty much every slate. I don't mind that at all. I've got some Tobias Harris right around the field. He's in that 15 to 20 range. Malik Beasley's not all that owned on DraftKings, getting a little bit more love on FanDuel. Ivy's not all that owned on DraftKings, getting a little bit more love on FanDuel. And then Jalen Duren is in that 10 to 15% range. I like basically everybody I just named. Nobody that I want to go crazy for, but I'm pretty happy to get any of these pieces for Detroit.
Yeah, I agree with you. So do you think it's for sure Malik Beasley that's going to start? I think there's a slight chance it could be Ron Holland. I'm assuming Jaden Ivey plays, by the way. But yeah. Do you think it's going to be Beasley?
Probably.
Yeah.
But I'm with you there that I think in theory, it could be Holland just to get more size out there. Holland's a couple inches taller, clearly a bigger body. If you want somebody to be sort of a bigger guy, otherwise they're going to be a little small in the backcourt. Either way, Beasley's playing, 30 plus minutes, even if he's coming off the bench, certainly more likely to close than Ron Holland, just from, they want to get shooting out there, especially if they happen to be behind. And Ron Holland is a rookie that is going to have some hiccups, that's for sure. But it's certainly up in the air. Holland, small forward eligible, 3,900. It would be interesting to see what would happen there with a minutes bump if he happened to be starting. But yeah, I'm leaning Beasley.
Okay. So yeah, keep an eye on the starting lineup. If Ron Holland starts, I think he'd be an interesting value play right now, getting very little ownership. I do think it's Beasley, but I think there's a chance Holland could start. The other options kind of agree. I think I'm fine with landing on any of the main guys, Cade, Ivy, Harris, Duren. Duren would probably be the preferred option coming in, sub 6K. Played 36 minutes in that last game, 30 minutes in the previous one. He's probably going to play around 30 minutes in a competitive game. Pretty good point per minute player, decent spot. So, I like the upside there on Duren. Tobias getting the most ownership, maybe going a little bit over-owned, but I get why. He's pretty secure role, playing good minutes. Yeah. I don't think I'm going to get to anyone else, though, outside of the starters. Like the price on Stewart is up. Again, he'll back up Duren. No one else I'm really looking to.
Toronto side is kind of bleak. Highest owned guy on Toronto from DraftKings is either 6% to Jake Puddle or 6% to Chris Boucher. It's a little different on FanDuel. We're seeing 20% ownership coming into Davion Mitchell. He's only 4,500 there, point guard only. RJ Barrett snuck up over the 10% line. He's at 13%, 7,700 on FanDuel. And then everybody else is in single digits. There's nobody that I'm like, oh, I got to get this dude. But, if you have RJ Barrett, a little bit of Grady Dick on FanDuel doesn't bother me at all. Davion Mitchell on FanDuel looks solid. I'm probably not getting to much on the DK side, though.
Yeah, I kind of like this team for tournaments. RJ Barrett gets a bump in usage and assist percentage with Quickly and Scotty Barnes off the court. He's put up some big games with those guys off the court. Like he has 3 50 fantasy point games this year. So the ceiling's clearly there for RJ Barrett. And again, the floor does go up a little bit too when you have both Quickly and Barnes off the court. He'll do more ball handling, assist numbers go up. Jakob Poeltl, 7.4K. He got in foul trouble last game, only played 28 minutes. We've seen in competitive games, though, him pushing for mid-30s minutes. So I think he's another reasonable contrarian option. You mentioned Grady Dick. He had a huge game last game. The usage goes up on him as well. He had 20 shot attempts that last game. So I think he's another reasonable contrarian play. Davion Mitchell, I think, is a better play on FanDuel. You mentioned the price there. 5.1K on DraftKings is still viable. Again, he'll be the primary ball handler. He's averaging 15 potential assists a game with those guys off the court. So, but again, he's just not really getting a lot of shots up. And then the last guy to mention is Chris Boucher, 4.2. He's played 20 plus minutes now in each of the last 4 games. Pretty good point per minute player. Has played some backup 5. Can play some 4 as well. So I think he's a fine contrarian value too. So I don't think there's any priorities in this team, but I do kind of like this team for tournaments. Barrett, Boucher, Poeltl, even some Grady Dick.
Yeah, they sort of have like a sea of last guy in GPP type dudes.
Yep.
I think we're seeing that one the same way. All right. Well, I definitely closed one of the tabs I needed, so I'm going to open that back up. You guys should hit the like button. There are 1,200 of you in YouTube right now, where I know we're going to run that number a lot higher. Why don't you just get those likes in immediately? See if we can get up to 200, 250. Seems pretty reasonable. Schedule for the rest of the day, very simple. NBA Live Before Lock with Greg and Eric is going to be coming up in about 40 minutes. They'll get it started at 6. They'll take you all the way up until 7. At that point, we go to playback.tv/Stokastic. Come watch the games with us. We'll be talking about late swaps and ownership news. We'll be talking about bets that we can place while we're watching the games. If you have League Pass, you could link your account and just watch along with us. If you don't have League Pass, we have 20 VIP passes that we could hand out so you guys can see what we see. And we can bounce through any of the games that aren't on national TV.
Join again.
So
hold on.
It's a good time. I'll let you figure that out. But yeah, join us on Playback. It's the best. We had 1,200 people in there on Wednesday because of all the late swap news. Everybody from YouTube just came over and hung out for a bit. So that was kind of fun. And we're going to do it again tonight if we get any weird news. But we'll be there one way or the other for an hour watching some basketball with you guys. We're moving it along to the Washington Wizards. 9.5 point dogs in Atlanta. 241 total. This is the highest total on today's slate and what I have as the highest paced matchup. But unfortunately, I don't really love much here. I thought this would have been a game to target, but these salaries are all sort of tough to get to. Joval is 14% owned on DraftKings. Nobody else is more than 3. Kyle Kuzma is 8% owned on FanDuel. Nobody else is more than 3. I didn't have anybody come out of my sims on either site in the optimal lineup more than 7% of the time. So I see these guys kind of similar to Toronto in that there's not a single name that I desperately want to get to, but if Bilal Coulibaly is in a lineup or Jordan Poole, Joval certainly at 5K, that could break well for him. We know that he is a incredible point per minute type guy. But in terms of just like getting to a bunch of Washington, I certainly don't see it. DK, can you hear me?
I can, yeah. I don't know what's going on with the AirPods, but yeah.
Well, we're good.
I'm good to go now.
We good. Look, if it cuts out again, I know how to filibuster.
Same thing.
Do you like anything on the Wizards?
No, I don't think there's any standouts here for Washington. It is projected to be a pretty high scoring game here. One thing to note for Washington is they did run an 8-man rotation last game. So that definitely is appealing. The minutes on Kuzma have been a little weird in his first couple of games back. There wasn't any news of a limit, but 24 and 25 minutes only could just be poor play, to be honest. But I think eventually like his minutes will tick up. Jonas Valanciunas right now getting the most ownership on this team. He's averaging around 20 minutes a game, pretty good point per minute player, reasonable price point. So I get why the ownership is going there. But yeah, like no ownership's going to like no one else on this team. Jordan Poole, I think, is a reasonable contrarian play. Coming in around 3%. But I don't think I'm going to get to like the rookies, Carrington and George. Their price points are up a bit. Coulibaly's price is up a bit as well. So I think it would be JV is probably the easiest guy to get to, and then a little bit of interest in Poole and Kuzma for tournaments.
I thought this game was just going to be so much more appealing, and it just isn't. Trae Young back for Atlanta after missing the last one. DeAndre Hunter also back for this one. All the other guys that we've been used to having out are still out. Got around 10% ownership coming into Trae on DK, 15 on FanDuel. Jalen Johnson has an MPE and a $300 cheaper price tag on FanDuel, so he's 15% owned there, only 5 on DK. And then Capella's getting a slow trickle. But even the Atlanta side, like even with this total, even with the matchup, there's nothing that looks like great. Jalen Johnson looks pretty good on FanDuel, and I'll always take Trae Young, but 9,900 is a lot.
Yeah, Oh, there we go. I can hear you again.
Perfect. Well, yeah, I want to hear you. I want to hear your Atlanta thoughts.
Yeah, so I kind of like this team for tournaments. I'm surprised Trae Young and Jalen Johnson are not getting more ownership. Like the matchup a lot for them. Again, the numbers for Johnson have been going up recently, like the assist numbers, rebounding numbers. He's playing big minutes in competitive games. So I think both Trae Young and Jalen Johnson are pretty good plays here. Both, 10% for Trae, about 5% for Jalen Johnson. The rest of the team, I don't think I'm going to get to anyone else, though. Capella and Okongwu are going to split the center position. DeAndre Hunter is back, but he'll be on a limit, and that's kind of makes it hard to get to Ricochet as well. Dyson Daniels had a big game last time out, but his price is up, and you have Trae back. So no one else I'm really looking to on this team, but I do like Trae and Jalen Johnson a good amount for tournaments.
Yep, we're on the same page there. Everything else is just kind of not there. So that's a really weird game. Like 241 total, and it's just kind of like an afterthought. It's crazy. Speaking of high totals and high-paced games, Chicago Bulls, 10-point dogs in Cleveland, 238 total. Chicago looks a lot like everything else we've been talking about. 11% ownership to Zach LaVine on DraftKings. Single digits to everybody else, even less so on FanDuel. The guy I actually think I like the most for the Bulls is Patrick Williams. And when I say like, that's not a lot. But I think he looks like the best option from Chicago. Power forward 4,400, playing around 30 minutes a night. Scares me, though. But the rest of Chicago just feels unappealing. And I can elaborate further on why Chicago is unappealing. Vooch is pulling 2% ownership on both sites. Kobe White is 4 on DraftKings, 1 on FanDuel. Their prices are fine. Like you'd look at it in a vacuum, you're like, oh, 6,800 LaVine, that seems good. 6,700 Kobe White, that seems good. It just doesn't. It's not fitting today's slate. We've got too many games. We've got enough spots with like decent enough value that I don't really want to take Chicago running into a buzzsaw Cleveland Cavaliers team.
Yeah, I agree there. It's just not a good spot, as you mentioned. There's not a lot of ownership going to this team. Levine getting the most. He's probably the easiest to get to, 6.8K, shooting guard, small forward eligible. But yeah, I think it's pretty difficult to get to anyone else. I mean, Jalen Smith's like a reasonable contrarian play. He'll back up Vooch, but I don't think it's necessary in the slate with some of the other value that we have. So yeah, tough spot. Nothing really standing out here for Chicago.
Cleveland side is basically the same. I mean, there's just no ownership coming into these guys. Like, every game we're talking about is just last guy in GPP pivot, last guy in GPP pivot. 20% ownership coming in Donovan Mitchell on DK, 10 on FanDuel, single digits across the board for these guys. You could always get to a Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, or Allen. There's no problems with that. One note that we do want to keep an eye on: Evan Mobley is questionable. He got that questionable tag like 15 minutes before the game on Wednesday. I think that was Wednesday. And then it was just immediately said that he was in. Maintained that illness now for the past 2 days. So if Mobley's out, that might change the way we talk about Cleveland. But for right now, it kind of looks like Donovan Mitchell and little else.
Yeah, my lean to is that Evan Mobley plays. Is that he was questionable a couple games ago and ended up playing. We'll keep an eye on that. I like the spot here. Like I really like targeting players against the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls play fast, and they're one of the worst defenses in the league. So Mitchell right now getting the most ownership. I think he's the easiest guy to get to. 60 plus fantasy points in back-to-back games. Yeah, I like the ceiling on him quite a bit here. But I don't mind any of the other main pieces: Mobley, Garland, Allen. 7.8K for Mobley, 7.1 for Garland, and 6.8K for Jared Allen. The one downside I'll say for the Cavs is, like, even in competitive games this year, the minutes haven't been as high on the main guys. And then last guy really to mention would be Karis LeVert. He's playing like mid-20s minutes off the bench, reasonable price point. I think he's an okay contrarian play, getting a little less than 10% ownership. I don't think I'm going to get to any of the other like value punt plays unless Evan Mobley gets ruled out. Then we can start looking at like Dean Wade and Niang and guys like that.
This slate is, I kind of like it. Like, you can really just take a stand on the things you want to take a stand on. Whatever you like carve out for yourself. A lot of these guys are just going to be like 5 to 10% owned, and you can take a decent stand. So I kind of like the direction we're heading. I don't like the direction I'm heading right now for this particular game. This is the clear lowest pace game on the day. Brooklyn and the Knicks are both 29th and 30th in pace so far. Nets are 9.5-point dogs in New York. Well, in New York, no matter what here, but at the Knicks, 215.5 total. We are waiting on some news in this game, not on the Brooklyn side. We already got that. Dorian Finney-Smith is available. Nick Claxton looks like he's going to be out for a week with a lower back strain. The opposite side for the Knicks, though, Q-tag Miles McBride, Q-tag Karl Anthony Towns, which could definitely become an interesting thing. Brooklyn is getting 18% ownership to Ben Simmons and nobody else. It's 9 on FanDuel. Nobody else. I'm going to have a little bit of Cam Thomas, the same way that I feel like I've explained it for every single game this year. It's happening again today. Not much, 18%. He's 5% owned. Other than that, I don't have a single share of Brooklyn, and I don't anticipate it. But the price tag for Ben Simmons looks good. It just sucks that he doesn't have an MPE.
Yeah, agree. It is a little tougher to get to because he's only point guard eligible. Now, do you think that they're going to start Ben Simmons, or do you think they're going to start Noah Clowney with Claxton out?
I would assume they start Clowney.
Okay. Yeah, because we have seen them go a little bit small ball with Ben Simmons in the past. But yeah, keep an eye on the starting lineup. I think whoever starts for Brooklyn there is going to be a decent value play. Ben Simmons right now getting the most ownership. The assist numbers have been up for Ben Simmons, so that is good to see. I think he's going to play mid-20s minutes in a competitive game. You mentioned Cam Thomas. The price has come down on him, plus reasonable eligibility, shooting guard, small forward. So I like him as a GPP play. We know the ceiling is pretty high there. I don't know if I get to anyone else. I was a little bit annoyed with the Jalen Wilson minutes last game. I thought he would play a little bit more. I liked him as a contrarian play, but only played 8 first half minutes, so that was a little bit disappointing. So yeah, I think whoever starts at center for Brooklyn is going to be a pretty solid play, and I like Cam Thomas there for tournaments.
All righty. And then we go to the Knicks side. Obviously, the Q tag on McBride and Towns are both massive. The Towns one in particular would really change up what the New York Knicks look like today, and we'll probably be able to squeeze some value, particularly from a Jericho Sims who has power forward center eligibility on DraftKings. Although I also think, they're gonna need to fill a bunch of minutes at center. Although the interesting piece for the Knicks here is OG Anunoby can guard or can be the 5 for the Knicks today if they need him to be for every minute he plays, if that's what they want to do. He's not worried about Ben Simmons. Noah Clowney is not the problem. If he can be the primary defender on like Joel Embiid in a playoff series, I'm quite confident he can handle whatever Brooklyn's trotting out there. So that is one little weird thing for the Knicks. Ownership has finally come down on these guys. Bridges is unowned, Hart's unowned, Anunoby's unowned. Cat's 18% on DraftKings, and I think he fully deserves it. I actually have a little bit more than that, but Brunson also unowned. The rest of these guys unowned. If we get everybody in, it's not that interesting of a Knicks team. I think this game is just too slow.
Yeah, agree. If Cat does get rolled out, that's where things would get pretty interesting here. Would assume Jericho Sims would start, and you'd probably get Huck 40 minutes. And as you mentioned, they could even go small ball too. But yeah, right now, Karl-Anthony Towns, I think, is your top option. The usage has gone up on him. The rebounding rate as well is pretty solid on Cat. So definitely like the upside there on Karl-Anthony Towns. I think it's kind of tough to prioritize anyone else right now. Brunson is 8.6. Like the price is up on Josh Hart. OG and Bridges both seem like priced fairly. And again, it's not a game that's going to be played at a super fast pace. Miles McBride is another guy on the injury report. I assume he plays. He's been questionable the last couple games with that knee issue, but I assume he will be good to go. So just keep an eye on the Cat news. But right now, assuming he plays, he's really the only guy that I'm looking to.
I feel like he just walks into the locker room like, Tibbs, I can't go today. He's just like, no, you got to play. Like, no, dude, no, I lost my leg from the knee down. We'll figure it out. You're in, available.
Yep, I could definitely see Tibbs doing that.
All righty, folks, hit that like button. We're going to call for that once again. We're at the midway point, about 1,700 people in here. Hit that thumbs up. Let's reward the Live Before Lock crew for when they get here. We also have to talk about you guys just simply signing up at Stokastic. Now, there's a link in the description that can get you a month of whichever sport sims that you're looking for. Nice. That was a perfect opportunity. Thank you to producer Jacob for putting up that graphic so I could swap out my Zin. That was great timing. You guys can see the different sites that you could sign up to through that link, whether it's a pick'em site, a sports book. There are options for you. There are deposit bonuses and bonus bets, and you get a month of our Sims core package. Just in case the Sims package isn't what you're looking for, you could do the exact same thing at OddsShopper and get a month of our portfolio EV tool. We have the same style link, the same sort of deals where you click the link, you sign up at one of the pick'em sites or sports books, and you get a month of the portfolio EV tool. I think you should try to get all of those things personally. They're fantastic tools. OddsShopper might be the best thing that exists in the sports betting space. Everybody's crushing. Greg's got a bankroll challenge thread on Twitter every day. He's up close to triple his money since the season started. There's no doubt about it, guys. You want to sign up for Stokastic /OddsShopper tools. You could do that through the link in the description. All right. Finally got that Zin jammed up in the old lip. Now I can get it through for the final 6 games. The Los Angeles Lakers taking on the San Antonio Spurs. 3-point dogs in San Antonio, 227 total. Not a lot of ownership here coming into the Lakers. Everybody under 10%. LeBron and AD are both at 9. No one else is getting any sort of ownership. But we do have a Q tag on Rui Hachimura, which can definitely open something up if he ends up out. But outside of like LeBron and AD, I doubt I'm clicking on any of these names. And I don't even have LeBron and AD already. I think this is like a no-go for me.
Yeah, keep an eye on the Rui news for the Lakers. He did get banged up there at the end of the game. If he does not play, you should get Dalton Connect starting. So Dalton Connect would be a decent value there if Rui Hachimura does get ruled out. But one thing I wanted to note here with with the lineup change here for the Lakers is the assist numbers have looked, potential assists have gone up on both LeBron and Reeves. LeBron over the last couple games, 65.5 passes made, 20 potential assists a game. Reeves is at 60 passes made and 9.5 potential assists. So the floor does go up slightly on those two. Again, as you mentioned, there's not really anyone getting a ton of ownership. I do kind of like Austin Reeves at like 1% just because, again, he's doing a little bit more ball handling now with D'Lo moving to the bench role. I'm never going to be mad about getting Anthony Davis. 10.5K does have a pretty high ceiling. I think it's a little trickier to get to LeBron than AD. And then no one else I'm looking to. So a little bit interested in AD and Reeves as contrarian plays, but that's about it.
The San Antonio side, equally as unappealing. No ownership on DraftKings. 4 to Wemby is the high mark. It's 7 to Chris Paul on FanDuel. There's no ownership coming into these guys. I'm at least a little terrified that I don't have Wemby, but he's also 11,100 in center only. That's a big time price tag. Now it looks a little bit better now that Nikola Jokic isn't a part of this slate, but I'm not expecting to get there. I just have to hope that we dodge the old 10 stock Wemby game today.
Yeah, agree. Like the ceiling is pretty high in Wemby. We've seen some big games from him recently, so I do like him as a contrarian option here. Like 70 plus now, last couple games. He's put up 70 plus fantasy points basically in 4 games so far this year. So the ceiling is pretty high in Wembanyama. Not getting a ton of ownership. There's more value opening up now, obviously, with Nikola Jokic out. So a little bit easier to get to him. So do kind of like him as a contrarian play. Chris Paul, I think, is at least a little bit interesting as well. Over the last 3 games, 28, 30, 29 minutes. He should play around 30 minutes in a competitive game. He's averaging like 10 assists a game over the last 3 games as well. So I think he's a little bit interesting at about 2% ownership, but I think it's kind of hard to get to anyone else. Stephon Castles has a pretty nice role for this team, but the price seems about right. You got the sell back, which kind of hurts the fringe guys like Shampenny, Castle, Barnes. So I think for me, it would be Chris Paul and Wembanyama as decent contrarian plays.
All righty. We're moving through this one pretty good, but so much of it is like untalkable. The LA Clippers are 5-point dogs in Houston, 214.5 total. Second lowest total on the slate. If this is an interesting game to you for James Harden, just be aware. They also played Houston in their last game. So James Harden has been hanging out in Houston for the past few days. I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know if that's a bad thing, but I definitely think it's a thing. I just don't know which direction it goes. Is it good for Harden because he's back in Houston and he gets to go to all his favorite establishments, or has he been spending too much time in those establishments and today isn't going to quite be the James Harden day you're looking for? Either one of those things seem feasible to me. There's only one thing that anybody is doing, though, for the Clippers today. Embiid allegedly supposed to have an increase to his minutes limit. I will never trust Nick Nurse, so I'm going to disregard that comment. We have 20% ownership coming into Chris Dunn on DraftKings, 25 on FanDuel. Dunn usurped Terrence Mann in the starting lineup before their last game. He's maintaining that role. At least that's the expectation. And if he does, very clearly the top value option from the Clippers, and really the only guy who's getting his name clicked on for anybody here. Nobody's going to Powell. Nobody's going to Harden. Nobody's going to Zoo. I like those guys in GPPs if you want to swap off somebody chalky, but it's kind of Chris Dunn and nobody else.
Yeah, I like Chris Dunn here a good amount. Played 31 minutes, moved into the starting lineup, and the potential assists for him are really good here. Let me pull that up. But yeah, I think he's a pretty good value play at his current price point. In their last game, it was, hold on, give me 1 second here.
Got it.
So yeah, he had 57 passes made, 11 potential assists. That was more than James Harden, 40 passes made and 13 potential assists, or at least the passes made, I should say. So yeah, Chris Dunn, pretty good point per minute player, and saw that nice minutes increase moving into the starting lineup. So I think he's a pretty good value here at 4.4. The rest of the team, no one's really getting any ownership. I think Ivica Zubac is a solid contrarian option. So last game too, I don't know if you saw it, was a competitive game, and Ty Lue kind of just waved the white flag, like played the bench in the fourth quarter, which was weird. Yeah. So a lot of these guys didn't play the full complement of minutes, but I would assume in a competitive game, you're probably getting about 35 minutes from Ivica Zubac, sub 8K. I think he's a decent contrarian play. I don't really think there's anyone else I'm going to look to, but yeah, Chris Dunn, I think, is a really good value play.
Houston, following the theme of basically everybody we've talked about today. Nobody is getting any ownership. The high mark is 3 to Şengün on FanDuel and 7 to Tari Eason on DraftKings. They're all kind of interesting in a GPP, whether that's Van Vliet or Jalen Green, Thompson and Eason. If you want to go to someone like Alper and Şengün, I think that's reasonable, but he's getting 0 ownership, much like Zubats on the opposite side. I don't know. I have a little bit of Tari Eason and nothing else.
Yeah. So Jabari Smith has been struggling for Houston. So we have seen an increase in minutes for the 2 young guys on the bench, Tari Eason and Amen Thompson. I don't know if we can expect like the Amen Thompson played 34 minutes last game. I don't think we can expect that again, but at least we know that is like in the range of outcomes is like he can have 30 plus minutes if he's playing really well. So I think those 2 guys are decent plays. Again, no one's really getting a ton of ownership on this team. And then you mentioned Şengün. I like him as a contrarian play, 8.2. The minutes have been a little bit, up and down on him. So that would be the one downside, but the ceiling's clearly there. For Alfred Şengün. And again, he's not getting much ownership either. It's just opportunity cost because there's so many good center plays on the slate once again. I don't think I'm going to get to anyone else. Van Vliet seems priced about right. Jalen Green is overpriced. So yeah, that's pretty boring team to talk about.
Well, that boringness is about to change. The Denver Nuggets are 3-point favorites in New Orleans against the corpse of the Pelicans. No Nikola Jokic today, out for the birth of a child, and obviously still no Aaron Gordon. This is where the ownership is hiding, at least a little bit of it. 20% to Michael Porter Jr. on DraftKings at 6,500. Now, he's basically unknown to FanDuel, but he's 72 there. Jamal Murray is 56% owned on DraftKings and 46% owned on FanDuel. Christian Brown not getting all that much love. He's around 15 on DK, around 5 on FanDuel. Peyton Watson is 50% owned on DraftKings and 20 on FanDuel. Julian Strother is 15% owned on DraftKings, 5% on FanDuel. Russell Westbrook is 30% owned on DraftKings and 15% owned on FanDuel. This is the first team that we really get to be like, wow, what are we doing here? What do you just like no matter what you see today?
Yeah, so I think no matter what, Jamal Murray looks like a really good play. Michael Porter Jr., Peyton Watson, and then whoever starts at the 5, I think is going to be a really good value. Now, Zeke Naji was the backup 5 in the most recent game, but it could be DeAndre Jordan. It could even be Dario Saric. He was the backup 5 earlier in the year. If you had to guess right now, do you think it would be Naji that gets the start?
Yes, but I think like the odds of it being DeAndre Jordan are like basically the same.
Yeah.
Slight lean just because Najee has been playing, and I don't know if they just want to be like, hey, DeAndre, do you want to just do something for the first time in weeks? But, we've seen them do that before. Saric would surprise me, but like if you're going to do it, this matchup against the Pelicans doesn't seem crazy.
Right.
And like we're going to, Zeke Naji's flat 3K. DeAndre Jordan's the flat 3K. They're both center only. It doesn't matter in any way which one of those. Like you can assume whoever it is. It makes no difference in what you're doing. They're the exact same play from a roster construction standpoint. So even if you end up wrong, you can swap every single piece of that to the opposite guy, and it won't affect anything you're doing. So I'm less concerned. If it's Saric, that's a little bit different, just because he's got power forward center and he's, for some strange reason, not the flat min. He's 3,300. The problem for me is I don't think I like any of them no matter who's the starter.
So you think like whoever starts at the 5, you're not going to be super excited about?
I don't think so. I think we're going to see all 3 of those guys play minutes. Like I definitely don't expect them to have 2 guys split those 48.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's definitely possible. So that would be the concern, is just like the minutes. Like someone could definitely get like a spot start and maybe only play 15 to 20 minutes. I think that's a very reasonable concern. But yeah, I think for me, whoever does start, whoever starts at the 5 would be the preferred option of like the bigs. But yeah, Jamal Murray looks great, 7-1. He has not had a great year this year. It was funny. I was looking up rates without Jokic and add more funds, and it's only been like 30 minutes because Jokic is just like always on the court. But yeah, Jamal Murray gets a nice usage bump here, so he looks really good. I think the ownership on Peyton Watson is a little high, above 50%, but I get why it's happening. Again, starting for Aaron Gordon, playing 30 plus minutes a night. Michael Porter Jr., I think, is going a little bit under-owned right now, sub 20%. Like the upside in him quite a bit. He's playing big minutes. Westbrook gets a nice bump in usage too without Jokic. Reasonable price point there. Christian Brown, I think, is fine. And then Julian Strawther, I think, will play a little bit more off the bench as well. 3.5K. He's had a very secure role for this team. With Jokic now off the court, he's probably getting more shots up too. So this is definitely my favorite team to target on this slate. It's the Fields as well. But when you take a guy like Nikola Jokic off the court, you have to have a lot of interest in these guys.
Yeah, I've got 40% of MPJ, 40 of Murray, 40 of Peyton Watson, a little bit of Julian Strawther. I'm light on Christian Brown. I don't really have any Russ yet, so I'm going to dig into him after the show. I probably need to give him another minute or so because I shouldn't just be full punting him because he could just be an absolute terror in this one. It won't be fun to watch, but not a lot slowing him down on the New Orleans side, so I want to keep my eye on that one. But yeah, ultimately, I don't expect to have much of whoever is named the center for Denver today.
Okay.
Unless they go like super weird and small and it's like MPJ.
Right. I mean, they could, and Denver can definitely play small ball a little bit too. So I think that like boosts the appeal a little bit of like guys like Westbrook and Strawther because I think they can just run smaller lineups out there.
Yeah, New Orleans is not offering up some sort of center that's going to give them any problems. By the way, Mark Stein tweeted at 5:44 that Rui Hachimura will be downgraded to doubtful tonight.
Okay. So I think Dalton Connect then is going to stand out as a pretty good value play. I assume he's going to start because he started for Rui last time out.
Yeah, I'm guessing we get a bunch more minutes there from Connect. Max Christie might get back into the rotation a little bit. I'd have to think about what else is there if they have any other sort of like wing type dudes, but I don't. In my mind, they don't. Oh, it's just all things Denver. I mean, they're going to be the highest owned team. They should be. And I mean, you're going to have some pieces from this one.
Yeah, for sure.
Craziness.
Like I think, you're going to need probably at least one nugget or so in every lineup.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, ownership is like basically telling you that it's 2 on the DraftKings side, which is just, and it makes sense. I mean, that's what happens when you take off, the best point scorer, rebounder, and assist man on the team. I mean, and probably blocks, rebounds, or steals, probably no, but I know he is pretty high in like the deflections category. But I mean, that's probably like, that's the biggest hole of anybody coming off of the floor for any team. You remove Jokic and you just completely change everything. Yuck. And then we get to the Pelicans. Now, these guys have been so hurt for so long that everybody's price has already sort of come up. So the bloom is off the rose for the value of the Pels. 10% ownership to Trey Murphy on DraftKings. Everybody else in single digits. 28 to Brandon Ingram on FanDuel. 8,300 small forward, power forward eligible. That makes a lot of sense. Murphy also got to 13 on FanDuel, but there's no priorities here from the Pels in terms of ownership outside of Ingram on the FanDuel side. And I'm right around the field on Murphy and Ingram on DK, but I don't have much. Kind of scary, but $8,900 Brandon Ingram. That's a healthy price tag.
Yeah, it's a healthy price tag, but I do like the upside in Ingram. This game should stay competitive with Jokic out. So, the price is up in Ingram, but again, the usage, assist numbers go way up with all those other guys off the court. So I do kind of like Ingram here as contrarian play. Trey Murphy getting the most ownership, a little above 10%. I like him as well. So last game, Trey Murphy got in some foul trouble, and then the game blew out as well. I think he could definitely play like it. I think it's in the range of outcomes. He could play like 35 minutes tonight. Like there's no real word on him still being on a limit. So I kind of like the upside there on Trey Murphy. And then I like Brandon Boston as well as a contrarian play. I know the price is up on him, but he's playing huge minutes right now. Over the last couple of games, Brandon Boston averaging 66 passes made and 13 potential assists a game. So I think he's another pretty good contrarian play. I don't think I'm going to get to anyone else, though, with the likes of like Javonte Green or Noel or Misi, JRE. But I like Murphy. I like Ingram and I like Brandon Boston as a contrarian play.
All righty, folks. One last call for likes. We're north of 2,000 people in the door. Show those NBA Live Before Lock guys some love before they get here. We've got 3 more games to go. One last thing to talk about very quickly. I know you guys are probably really excited to watch Jake Paul pummel a old man, but we also have a big UFC card tomorrow. John Jones back fighting Stipe Miocic, and you guys can get our MMA DFS core package for $1 using the promo code BONES. This deal goes away tomorrow. You want to get in right now for tomorrow's big contest on DraftKings. It's a huge pay-per-view, lots of money in the contests, and you can get everything for $1. The sims are fantastic. You also get access to our premium data, our projections, our top fighters tool, the ability to just generate contests for MMA, and find out what your best lineups could possibly be. This is essentially zero risk. A single dollar to come in for a week, pop into Discord, hang out while everybody's watching the fights. It's very simple, guys. So click the link in the description or use that promo code BONES. All righty. Final game for the DraftKings slate. Phoenix Suns, 8-point dogs in Oklahoma City, 228 total. Phoenix is a little walking wounded right now. Bradley Beal out, calf strain. Kevin Durant out, calf strain. Yusuf Nurkic, questionable. Grayson Allen, questionable. We need a lot of information here because some of these guys might look really good. I don't really know what I want to do here, but I'm kind of happy in where I'm getting exposure so far because it will help me out for swaps. 20% ownership coming into Grayson Allen on DraftKings. He's a bit more expensive on FanDuel, so he's sub 10%. He's the only double-digit guy on DK for Phoenix. Booker, Ryan Dunn, and Yusuf Nurkic are all in the 10 to 15% range on FanDuel. Booker is $900 cheaper on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings. I have a massive amount of Grayson Allen at this moment. If this game were at 7 o'clock, I'd be a lot like we're at 7:30. I might be a little bit more nervous, but with it being at 8, I can pretty easily swap off of him with 3 8 o'clock games. I'm actually getting to a bit of Yusuf Nurkic as well, which is a very interesting spot against an Oklahoma City team that's going to trot out Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as the tallest starter. But I don't have Booker. I've got a little bit of Tyus Jones. Phoenix is really interesting, but those Q tags matter in such a huge way.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting team for tournaments. Nurkic and Grayson Allen, both questionable. Grayson Allen didn't go through shoot around, so I'm expecting him to play. Nurk played in their most recent game as well, so I think he will play as well. If he does not, you're going to get Mason Plumlee most likely starting again, and then Oso playing the backup 5. I do think because Phoenix will go small at times too, that if Nurk gets rolled out, they could definitely play more small ball. Even if Nurkic plays, I think there is some minutes risk with Nurk. We have seen, again, Phoenix can just match Oklahoma City and go small ball too. But yeah, Grayson Allen getting the most ownership on this team, and I agree with it. Sub 4K price point, gets a nice usage bump with both KD and Booker off the court. So last game was a massive blowout there. But yeah, I think Grayson Allen will play good minutes in a competitive game. And then the rest of the team, Devin Booker not getting much love here. Only about 1%. The price is way up on him, but he's going to be leaned on heavily to do a lot here for this offense. And then, did you see that Josh Okogie game last game?
So dumb.
So it was I checked at halftime. I'm like, why does Josh Okogie have 40 fantasy points at half?
Yeah, I hate when I see stuff like that. I never have that. I don't mean Okogie, but I never have that guy as a guy that I randomly got to. The random, I'll have 15 to 20% of some 2 or 3% owned guy. He's never the dude that's oh my God, he had 40 in the first half.
Right. So I just remember looking at, I kind of like that late slate too. I played it heavy and I was oh, I'm feeling pretty good. And then I saw Okogie had 40 and a half. I'm nope, I'm dead. But yeah, the rest of the team, I think Tyus Jones is playable too, 5.8. He should play mid-30s minutes in a competitive game. So I just think this team is pretty interesting for tournaments. Keep an eye on the status of Nurk and Grayson Allen. Could definitely open up some more value if one or both those guys get ruled out.
Yeah, we're going to get something decent out of Phoenix, whether they're in or out. We just don't know what it's going to be yet. We don't have anything interesting for Oklahoma City, particularly on the DraftKings side. 9% to Aaron Wiggins is the high mark on DK. Jalen Williams got to 15% on FanDuel because he's still able to be rostered at reasonable positions. SGA is 10% owned. I didn't get a single share of Oklahoma City in my sim before this show started, and I probably won't get much. I'll end up with like 5 to 10 of Shea as stuff starts to move around, but it's really difficult to get to these guys. I don't trust the rotation. The minutes are all weird for everybody that isn't SGA, Jalen Williams, or Dort. They're going to play 10 dudes, maybe 11 if they want to get really weird. I don't like it.
Yeah, I agree on the rotation thing. It is kind of hard to figure out where the rotation is going to go with a lot of these value pieces. The price is up there on Shea, but ceiling is also very high on Shea if this game can stay competitive. In the 2 games without Chet, he has a 34% usage and 32% assist percentage. Rebounding numbers have ticked up a bit too, just because, again, they are playing small ball. It is so dumb that Jalen Williams is only center eligible. Like, it's just, what are we doing, DraftKings? But obviously he gets a bump in usage too with Chet off the court. It's just tricky to get to him because he's only center eligible. If you have like a strong take on one of these value plays, I think they're reasonable GPP plays, but it's just really hard to have confidence in this rotation. So you want to take a shot on like a low-owned Joe or a low-owned Case and Wallace. I think that's totally reasonable, but I think it's hard to feel good about it, but if you wanted to mix in some of those value plays in your large field tournaments, I think that's totally fine.
Closing out the show with 2 games, both 10 o'clock starts, not on the DraftKings main slate. Memphis Grizzlies, 7.5 point dogs in Golden State, 235 total. It is literally impossible to talk about Memphis today. Desmond Bane, questionable. He's been out for ages. Brandon Clark, questionable. Left toe soreness. All the other guys that have been out are out. And now Vince Williams, coming back from that stress reaction, questionable today. Now, they all participated in shoot around. There's 7% ownership coming into Jaren Jackson and nothing else. I have no interest in this team. I don't know who's in the rotation. I don't know who's going to play. It's a complete mystery, and I don't think you should really be playing anything from the Grizzlies.
Yeah, agree. A lot of these guys are priced up. They're running a pretty deep rotation anyway. Now that Bane and Clark probably play, it's like, I have no idea what this rotation is going to look like. So I think it's really hard to get to this team. Jaren, the one guy getting some ownership, but I think there's probably better options at his price point. So Marcus Smart in his first game back played 23 minutes off the bench. I would expect similar run from him, but I don't think we can go there. Again, Bane, I assume will be on a somewhat strict limit too. So I think it's pretty hard to go there, assuming he plays. And then the running, if Clark plays, they're going to play like 3 guys at center. So a very unappealing team.
Golden State is also equally as weird, but they're starting to stabilize a little bit. DeAnthony Melton is going to be out for a bit with an ACL sprain. 20% ownership coming into Wiggins, 15 to Draymond, single digits for everybody else. I would happily take a shot at an $8,800 Steph Curry at sub 10% ownership. And I do think Wiggins and Draymond look okay, but I'm also not all that interested in anything else from Golden State.
Yeah, it's still another team that I'm not super excited to roster anyone. DeAnthony Melton is out, so that can open up a little bit of playing time, but it's like, I have no idea what Steve Kerr is going to do with the lineup. Like, could go so many different ways, and they're still going to run a pretty deep rotation. I think the 2 guys that I look to right now would be Steph at 8.8 and Draymond Green at 5.8. Steph has shown the ceiling recently. 3 of the last 4 games, 59, 58, and 64 fantasy points. And then Draymond Green in competitive games, the minutes have ticked up a bit on him. He's averaging about 30 minutes or so in competitive games. So if you wanted to get to Steph or Draymond, I think that's fine, but there's no one else really that I'm confident in.
And finally, one last call for likes before we switch to live before lock. The Minnesota Timberwolves, fresh off of 2 losses to the Trailblazers, are 1.5 point favorites in Sacramento. It's the same Minnesota team we're used to, that same 8-man rotation. Sacramento, though, no Malik Monk and no DeMar DeRozan, lower back tightness. 5% ownership to Ant and Julius Randle are the high marks on FanDuel for Minnesota. I mean, these guys do so little to their rotation that all of these prices have just stabilized where they're supposed to be. And when you start getting value in other places, it becomes really difficult to get to a team like Minnesota.
Yep, agree. I think Minnesota is pretty hard to prioritize anyone. I just wanted to say, like, Dante DiVincenzo, man, I can't get this guy right at all with props. At least, like, every single time I take an over on him, he can't shoot. Like, I took his over last game. He shot 1 of 10. So I was assuming Conley was going to be limited, or he did get ruled out. But yeah, so I just wanted to mention that guy has cost me infinite money this year. But But yeah, Minnesota, I don't think there's really anyone that I'm going to feel good about. If you wanted to target one of the main guys in the tournament, sure. And then for Sacramento, they're a little bit more interesting. You have no Malik Monk, no DeMar DeRozan. So DeRozan playing huge minutes, pretty high usage player out of this offense. With DeRozan off the court on the year, De'Aaron Fox is a 34% usage rate and 28% assist percentage. So like the upside there on De'Aaron Fox. And then you should get pretty secure minutes here for Kevin Huerter. Keon Ellis started the second half for DeMar DeRozan, ended up playing 26 minutes. The price point is up on him, at least on DraftKings. A little bit tough to go to him. I do think you'll get a little more run for guys like McDermott and Trey Lyles with DeRozan no longer there. Trey Lyles is 3.4K on DraftKings. I think he's like an okay punt play. But yeah, I think De'Aaron Fox of the main guys would probably be the preferred option. And then I think Huerter, again, is in a pretty secure role now with both Monk and DeRozan off the court. And then a little bit interested in some of those value plays.
Technical difficulties be damned. We made it to the end of the line. DK, tell the people where to find you.
Yes, you guys can find me on Twitter. That's going to be DK__DFS or YouTube DKDFS.
That'll do it, folks. Live Before Lock is starting right now because I'm putting Eric and Greg into the stream. What's up, boys?
What's up, guys?
All right. There's only one conversation we need to have during the break. Let's go around the horn. Mike Tyson, Jake Paul. What happens?
So I'll be watching it, which there was a point in time I never would have thought I would have had any interest in watching these Jake Paul fights. And they're actually kind of fun and entertaining as events. But I just posted this on Twitter because I'm seeing all these people talking about what side they're betting and whatnot. This is not a legitimate sporting event to me. It doesn't mean it's rigged. It's just it's something for entertainment. It's a circus that's disguised as a sporting event. So this idea that there's some like super sharp side to be betting, I don't buy that at all. I'll pick Jake Paul to win because he is the betting favorite. Therefore, I assume he's more likely to win. But I couldn't tell you I have any kind of actual lean on any real information I have.
See, my wife doesn't understand betting odds, and so that's in my favor. We have our anniversary, 3-year anniversary tomorrow, and so we're going to dinner, and she wants Mike Tyson. So I gave her Mike Tyson straight up. So I have even money on dinner with my wife, and I have Jake Paul, so I'm cheering for Jake Paul. Good times.
I'm honestly surprised that Jake Paul's not a bigger favorite.
Me too.
I thought
he should be minus $1 billion.
He should be minus 1,000. If it wasn't the name recognition of Mike Tyson, this would be the most lopsided line in the history of boxing.
Well, I saw all the public too is betting Mike Tyson. Like I think like a vast majority of the bets are going to Tyson, which I guess I'm not surprised about.
All of you dorks picking Mike Tyson.
You're out of your mind.
Let me know, where's the cutoff? When do you is he just always Mike Tyson when he's 87 years old? It's still Mike Tyson. Got to take him in these spots. He's 60, guys, and he sucked at the end of his career. He hasn't been a good boxer since like 1996. I was 11. What are we doing?
He was great in The Hangover.
We got to hope that he doesn't die in the ring.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is stupid to me. Meaning, like, I'm not betting on this.
No.
Or anything like that. I don't agree that Jake Paul isn't a real boxer either. Neither of them are real boxers.
Whoa. He is approximating a real boxer.
No, he's not. None of it's real. Get the hell out of here. We got basketball to talk about. Get out of here, you goofballs. You're as much of a clown as this fight tonight. It's a more legitimate fight than Stipe versus John Jones tomorrow, though. I'll give it that.
I agree. We are going to have a long hour on playback.
Greg versus Jimmy Butler. That's the other one I'm looking forward to. That should have been the undercard.
All right. See you guys.
Later guys. All right. Let's talk about some basketball here. Jacob, throw some data on the screen. Erase, get the bad taste of stupid celebrity boxing out of our mouths here. Let's get some. I don't even care what it is. Sims, ownership, player projections. We should have an update that just came through because we had some news that came out not all that long ago, Eric, and it is that Rui Hachimura is going to be out tonight. There's also a ton of other injury news that is going to break at some point today that is going to be possibly impactful to our lineups. Like Karl Anthony Towns being questionable. Evan Mobley is questionable. Yusuf Nurkic is questionable. Jaden Ivey is questionable. Desmond Bane is questionable. Grayson Allen is questionable. Miles McBride is questionable. Andre Drummond's questionable. Brandon Clark is questionable. Vince Williams is questionable. He could be back for the Memphis Grizzlies tonight. Where I really want to start is by talking about the Rui Hachimura situation, because we already know what's going to happen there. He's not going to play. Well, he's doubtful, so we're going to assume likely that he's not going to be playing. So let's start by talking about that situation. And then from there, we'll see whatever else ends up happening over the course of the show. And of course, we'll answer any questions you guys have. We'll be in Discord. I'll be looking for any of the questions from subs as well. But first off the bat here, Rui Hachimura not playing. Does that open up any real value for you on the Lakers?
Yeah, I think Dalton Connect immediately becomes, he's already starting to get some of the trust of LeBron James, JJ Redick. Let's just call them both the coach for the sake of simplicity. JJ Redick hates D'Angelo Russell. LeBron James, based off the look when he didn't get the lob back, if you were watching that game, I'm pretty sure LeBron James hates D'Angelo Russell. I think Dalton Connect is already playing himself into more minutes, and now I think he starts. I'm not sure who started last time out. I think it was Connect that got the start last time Rui was out. Let me find it. Yeah, it was Dalton Connect. So I'm expecting Reeves, Reddish, Connect, James, Davis as the starting lineup. And that being the case, I think Connect immediately becomes interesting. He's out there to shoot. He's out there to create. He looks like he's getting more comfortable. He's a 24-year-old. He's older for a rookie. He had a long college basketball career. One of the rare four-year guys. Tennessee, I know, was where he finished off at. I can't remember where he was before, but Dalton Connect is a pretty decent little piece here on the Lakers team. And I think there's definitely some value when he's sub 4K with the positionality that he has. I'm not sure if anything else really changes for me. I'm not huge on LeBron, not huge on AD here in this spot. We don't have like crazy 3K value or anything. All of the value we have is in Denver with 5K, 4K type dudes. Jamal Murray at 7,100. Christian Brown 5,300. These aren't exactly 3K guys that we're landing on, and so hard for me to land on either one of them. I think Dalton Connect and basically nothing else right now.
Yeah, and Dalton, are you assuming Connect starts?
Yes, yeah, that was the whole thing. He has to start. If he doesn't start, I'm not doing it. No.
Yeah, I'm also anticipating him to move into the starting lineup. He's only got one, and also this is what makes him a DraftKings play, but not really a FanDuel play for me. He's basically got one NBA skill. He could shoot, and he could shoot the shit out of the basketball. I think JJ Redick overstated it, where if you heard JJ Redick talking about Dalton Connect about a week before the season started, he said this guy is a 99th percentile shooter in the entire world, which, that's kind of ridiculous to me because that would make him like a top 10 shooter in the NBA or something like that. So no, not quite to that extent. But he's somebody who I do think is going to be a good shooter throughout his career going forward. And in the scenario where he makes a handful of threes, and then it's not like it's going to be zeros in the other categories, but let's say he goes, 4 of 9 from 3. And then on top of that, he gets, like 1 stock, a couple rebounds, an assist or something like that. Then you're looking at mid-20s fantasy points for a guy who is, pretty cheap. So I agree with you. I don't love Dalton Connect or anything like that, but I do think he's a viable value option. We've got him projected for a little bit over 20 fantasy points at a sub 4K price point. It brings him into play. He's viable.
Love. Yeah. That's basically the only guy here. We'll see what else happens throughout the course of the show. And same thing as last week. We have tons of injury news. I know that you could basically blindly play some Denver value around, this tournament piece, that tournament piece right now, but same thing exists as what existed yesterday or 2 days ago. It was, you need to be on the playback show afterwards with Greg and Josh. I'm just going to repeat it one more time. I think enough people actually listened this last time, and you really, really needed that news. And I think there's going to be a lot of tournament plays that show up. I'm not sure what happens with Evan Mobley and this illness, considering, he was questionable last time out. He was just fine. I don't know what happens in that spot. That would be an interesting one where Jared Allen and Donovan Mitchell would just look outrageous. I'm not sure it opens up value there, but there's going to be stuff that happens throughout this show, 51 minutes. And then for the next hour after the fact, the Denver starting lineup is going to be something that matters because I'm going to want to take tournament shots on whoever starts there as the center. You want to be on playback after this show.
Definitely. And that is something that Josh and I are going to be able to cover a handful of things on the post-lock show. We've also got the MMA sale that's going on. So if we are at a point where there isn't a ton of NBA news that's coming out, which I don't think is going to be the case today, but Josh and I could also start talking some about the big MMA DFS slate tomorrow. There's a $700,000 prize pool over on DraftKings, and you get access to our MMA tools for just $1 with the promo code BONES. Easiest way to sign up, guys. There's a link down below in the YouTube description box. Already got that promo code loaded in. So if you want to play MMA DFS tomorrow, or honestly, even if you aren't or weren't planning on playing MMA DFS, you should check it out. It's my favorite DFS sport to play. And for just $1, you get access to our core package. So our fighter projections, our ownership projections. You could use our single lineup sim for MMA on this package, our Sims tool, so you could build lineups in the contest generator and sim them, all just for $1 with that link down below in the YouTube description box. So go check it out. And then if you guys have questions about MMA, Josh and I could also answer some of those on the post-lock show. And then, yeah, Nick, bring it up in chat. Lots of big favorites on the card. We're just going to make for some interesting talking points as well. Other injuries for today, Eric. I know you mentioned Evan Mobley. Do you have any particular leans on guys who are questionable that you either feel good are going to sit or potentially play? If the answer is no, that's totally fine. But every once in a while, there's a player who's questionable who you feel really strongly you have a good intuition on whether they'll be in or out.
Yeah, I've generally been okay at that. I mean, NBA DFS has generally been my best DFS sport because of that. But I think the main ones that I think I have a better feel on, I think Desmond Bane plays tonight for Memphis, but that's not on the DraftKings slate. So I think everything else is not 50-50. I mean, I'm assuming that because it's the NBA Cup, most of these guys are closer to playing, but I think that's kind of the consensus that we have, that the industry has. Jaden Ivey is probably the biggest, like, up in the air I could not possibly pick if they're in and out. I think I'm leaning towards almost everybody else being in. Like, Karl Anthony Towns being out would be a disaster. Like, I really do not want that. I don't want to deal with it at all. Mainly because Tibbs, I mean, he's reliable for 1 through 4 there, but that 5 would be so volatile. And I'm not sure I want to click on Jericho Sims on a slate on a nice, relaxing Friday. But yeah, I'd say no is probably the answer. I don't have a great feel for what everybody else is going to do here. Jaden Ivey, probably the most up in the air one out of everybody.
You're not in playback. Go join playback so that people can hear you.
I didn't see you in there either. I didn't.
Yeah. All good. In there. All good. Yeah. So as far as the injury news, went over the players who are questionable. We'll address that as we go here. And as more value opens up, it's going to become easier and easier to spend up for some of the top studs on the slate, which all of them crushed the other day, Eric. And don't think I haven't forgotten your panic text to me about Franz Wagner, who could not have been less relevant for that slate the other day. You were all concerned, like, oh my God, he has 40,
with 6 minutes left in the third quarter.
46 fantasy points when every other decent player scored like 70 or more.
Okay. My panic was when it was the only game going, and he had 44 with 6 minutes left in the third, and then he put up 2 fantasy points the rest of the game. It was a big outlier that he finished that poorly, if we're being honest.
You're right. He actually was at 38, and then he ended up putting a few. But either way, neither here nor there. We don't need to overreact. Eric was the YouTube chat the other day. I'm getting texts from him in all capital letters. We are fucked. Franz Wagner must play, going nuts. And ultimately, yeah, I was happy that we had 0 exposure to the first game on that slate the other day, which that had to have been the highest scoring slate that I think I've said this multiple times in the past, and sometimes it's correct. Sometimes it's actually probably almost never correct. But I actually do think the slate the other day was the highest scoring one ever. It was over 500 to win on FanDuel. The winning DraftKings score is 455. The min cash line was kind of close to 400 fantasy points too. All of the chalk went off, and then all of the studs crushed. You had almost 100 from Giannis. Wemby scored like nearly 80. SGA at over 70. It was a crazy game. Now, Rui officially ruled out. Yeah. But let's go ahead and talk about the pay-ups for today. Because as more and more value opens up, Eric, it's going to be easier and easier to pay up for studs. Who is your overall favorite player to be paying up for tonight?
What's the threshold for paying up?
Let's say of all the guys who are 9K and more.
Well, then you cut off my favorite guy for tournaments.
Okay, well, I'll let you. We'll do it 2 ways. Tell me your guy 9K and above, and then you can throw in the other guy as well.
Okay. Favorite guy, 9K above, is going to be Karl Anthony Towns, 9,100. And then my favorite guy that for tournaments period, that's above 7K basically. Brandon Ingram, 8,900. We have so much Denver value. I would be remiss not to play some Brandon Ingram into my life. Think about how many non-competitive games New Orleans played over the course of the last few weeks. I mean, obviously, that's what's going to happen when you're missing half of your roster, it feels like. It's not just Zion Williamson. It's DeJounte Murray. It's CJ McCollum. It's Jose Alvarado is now going to be out forever. Jordan Hawkins dance in his khaki pants. Herbert Jones. Herbert Jones? It's a disaster looking at the Pelicans roster. And Brandon Boston, Brandon Ingram, two guys I absolutely love for tournaments today because in a competitive spot, which this projects out to be now, whereas with Jokic, it would have been like a flat nothing. I love getting to everybody here. Even the nuke of the night comes from the Pelican side of things. So I'm very excited about pretty much everything that exists on the Denver-New Orleans game. It's going to be a huge part of my lineup. So yeah, Brandon Ingram favorite at 8,900, but Karl Anthony Towns, 9,100, playing massive minutes. 37.5 is now his points plus rebounds line. I was betting this at 29.5 at the beginning of the season, then 31.5, then 32.5, then 34.5. It is insane that he is up to 37.5, but we've ridden it to the top. These are the kind of things you want to do early in an NBA season.
Yeah, and man, for me, it's for me right now also Cat as the pay up option I get the most exposure to. Now, if he's ruled out, I'm pretty sure that's going to end up becoming Jalen Brunson for me. Although, what's the price point on Brunson?
No, it would be Jalen Brunson, 8,600. Yeah, I would be jamming him against Brooklyn.
Yeah, so he's not over the 9K threshold that I gave you before. So Cat would be number one. If not Cat, SGA again for me. Although I don't have a ton of him. I don't have that much exposure to super expensive pay up options. This is also something that could change as more value opens up, but a lot of the guys I'm getting the most exposure to, Eric, it's more guys in the mid-range. Jamal Murray. I'm getting to Tyrese Halliburton tonight, and that's something that maybe makes me a little bit uncomfortable just because it's hard to know what's wrong with Tyrese Halliburton. I don't know that there's a data angle you could apply to this because he's been so off versus what he's been the entire rest of his career. Something Josh and I briefly talked about the other day, which was the start of last season an outlier, but then you look at the rest of his career, it's like, no. The guy's always been a lights out shooter throughout his career. Something is amiss right now. I don't know if it's a mechanical issue with his jump shot, if he's dealing with an injury. I think his shoulder's
still fucked up. I think his shoulder is still bad. I'm pretty positive. Like, I have Iowa State connections. I've been trying to, as hard as I possibly can, push the pedal on that where, I'm fortunate enough, like Minnesota stuff. I'm pretty connected with the Timberwolves. I have a number of people who can give me good information there. I've gotten nothing from the Tyrese Halliburton side of things. Sounds like he doesn't go back to Iowa all that frequently, but the trainers who worked with him there said, yeah, there was, he tore his ACL when he was in college at one point in time and had a very short stint. That's why Iowa State sucked. And then, when they came to the draft, every team passed on him way, way, way too early. But he's such a zero on the defensive end that if his shoulder is screwed and he can't play offense, he's legitimately a bad basketball player to have on your roster. Like, it's unbelievable how different he is if he's not knocking down shots, which is the case right now. They should be closing with TJ McConnell a lot of the time.
I wouldn't go that far. He's still a really strong playmaker, and he brings other and I still think he's going to make shots going forward. I have to expect he's a 40% three-point shooter the rest of the season. It's what he's done his entire career. Something just appears to be amiss right now, and I think he's fine as a buy low at the moment. The other guy also, all right, so the player I actually have the most exposure to, who is or I should say over 8K, but isn't quite at the 9K mark. I am getting to a lot of Donovan Mitchell right now at $8,200. That up pace matchup against the Bulls. They've been playing at an incredible pace. Point guard, shooting guard eligibility. Evan Mobley being questionable if he's out. That wouldn't be a massive boost for Donovan Mitchell, but still it's a little bit more usage with Evan Mobley being out, and if it's like Dean Wade or whatever in the starting lineup in his place. So Donovan Mitchell is somebody who right now is in 38% of my lineups. That number is more likely to go up than it is to go down.
Agreed. Is he cash viable? Mainly, I say this because Noah Moon, who is maybe the worst Twitter account that's ever existed in the history of planet Earth, we have a $109 head-to-head going tonight that he sent over to me. So it is very important that my cash lineup does well because I have more cash in play today. I have like 800 in cash. I have like 200 in tournaments. So I'm playing primarily cash here today. I need to beat Noah Moon's brains in.
Yeah, if you don't, you lose your job, and then he's going to be on Live Before Lock next week.
That would
just
also,
so no pressure.
Okay.
You can't call somebody the dumbest person on Twitter than lose to them.
I would say I've been pretty humble here throughout my tenure at Stokastic.com. I will cede over it. If you would really, really like that to happen, we can make that happen. We could play a free head-to-head, but for live before lock rights. And, I can just sit here and grind the DFS streets and not have to be on the show. That'd be okay. As long as I'm still getting paid.
Better win. You better win. Some super chats that have come in here. First, Orat14 says, to be different, what is the least Denver players on DK?
You could have 0 and hope the game just does stupid things, or they put up 80 points. I don't know if people remember the Golden State days of yore, like pre-2020 DFS, but Golden State used to have like 8 active bodies every night for like 2 months, and they would only score 85 or 90 points, and they would still be extremely fantasy viable like every single night. There were also nights that put up 70 and nobody would get there. That's kind of what you're hoping for if you want Denver to just suck. Like Jamal Murray goes 5 for 24 from the field. Michael Porter Jr. takes every shot, but doesn't add any other counting stats, like just doesn't rebound or whatever. Like there's lots of ways where these guys don't get there and you're okay having 0, but like it's not a majority of the time. I definitely want to have a lot of Denver and New Orleans tonight.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly. Just to read the question, he said, to be different, what's the least Denver players on DK? So there's a couple of different ways we could answer this. Number one is, what's the least amount of Denver players you'd be willing to play in a lineup? Or, Olrat, do you mean who is the least owned Denver player? Like, who's a low-owned Denver player that we think you could get to that would differentiate a lineup and maybe give you leverage off of more popular Denver players? I think that might be what you mean, but I'm not exactly sure. As far as my lineups, it's hard for me to say you should get away from Denver because I'm not. I have a ton of exposure to Jamal Murray. I think Peyton Watson's a great value option. We've known Nikola Jokic today. That creates such a ridiculously gigantic void in the Denver Nuggets offense that I've got a lot of exposure to Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, Peyton Watson, even Russell Westbrook off the bench. He's somebody who ends up showing up in more lineups for me. Nobody else who I'd consider to be a core option from Denver, but Christian Brown, he's picking up ownership. He's 17% owned. Are there any low-owned players from Denver that you look at and say, oh, that's a guy with upside the field isn't playing?
Yes and no. I mean, Dario Saric, even if he comes off the bench, I'm probably going to have some of. Like what do we think the minute ceiling is on Dario Saric today?
He's been so terrible this year.
I know.
I hear you're saying though, there is a ceiling just because Jokic is out. If he's playing well, they're just going to let him run at center, and he's not a terrible fantasy producer, even though he's really washed at this point. But you could see him playing mid-20s minutes if things break his way.
And that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like he's only gotten up to like 12, but this is also just a dude that we've seen it in Phoenix. We've seen it in OKC. We've seen it. Dario Saric has been a lot of different spots. And it feels like he's always somebody you can rely on to potentially step into a larger role than you expect. Like there's so many times in Phoenix where he'd come off the bench and then play like 30 minutes and then he tore his ACL and it was a disaster for him as well. But I think no matter what, even if he's coming off the bench, I'm going to take some tournament shots on him. Probably nobody else. Like, I mean, Julian Strother is going to be owned. Everybody who starts that we kind of anticipate is going to be owned. Like, I don't think Spencer Jones steps into any kind of a role, or like it would take like a really wonky script of like extreme outlier proportions. So, I mean, they're 2.5 point favorites still. I mean, that's the insane part about this. I'm not going to take shots on Trey Alexander or Hunter Tyson. It's basically going to be Strother, Saric, Zeke Naji if he comes off the bench, which is, kind of what I expect him to. He could step into a larger role, I think, but I think it's primarily going to be a lot of the starters. And then, no matter what, I'll have a couple, like maybe 5-10% of Dario Saric.
Yeah, Strother's the guy for me. Not that he's unowned, but he's 14% and I'm overweight to him. So I'll give Strother as my more contrarian Denver guy you could get to be a little bit different with some of those players. Aiden Queskin has a 2v2 question for us. And hey, one side's got Tyrese Halliburton in it. Tyrese Halliburton and Chris Boucher, Eric, or Terry Rozier and Benedict Mathurin?
me see it. Hallie Boucher,
Mathurin.
Rozier,
I
Mathurin.
have very little exposure to Terry Rozier.
Yeah,
I also have very
almost
little
none.
exposure to Chris Boucher.
I'm a
don't
Chris
like either of
Boucher
those
absolute
combinations.
stan, though. I mean, Chris Boucher, he's played, 25, 24, 20 minutes. It's been some wonky game scripts. At least this is Detroit on the other side, but that kind of makes me like Boucher less. When they play competitive games, Boucher's basically capped at 20 minutes, and that's just a problem. I will say the first one, but as much as I love Boucher, and I would be the first person to play him if I could, I really have none in 150.
Yeah, the problem is I've got a couple of Boucher lineups. I've got a couple of Rozier lineups. I do have Mathurin. I do have Halliburton. I guess I'll say Halliburton and Boucher because I have more Halliburton than I have of Mathurin, but I don't love rostering Boucher or Rozier tonight.
What did somebody say? DeAndre Jordan not with the team? No, he's with the team. I'm just saying he never plays, but he probably starts tonight. He's who I have starting. I don't know who you do, but DeAndre's starting in a lot of these spots.
It's a little bit different now just because he's older at this point. It could be him that starts. I wouldn't be surprised if they just go small, though.
I wouldn't be surprised, but I think the odds-on favorite, the minus 200 favorite, is DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah, most likely. It's still not. Let me see. Do I have how much of DeAndre Jordan do I have? I don't have DeAndre Jordan lineups, and we have him. Yeah, I mean, we have him projected for 10 fantasy points.
Yeah. No matter what, I'm going to take shots on whoever starts. Who do we have as the presumed fifth starter then?
I think Jordan. Just playing limited minutes.
Like 6 minutes, and that's it.
Yeah, if Rich or Jason are watching, hit me up and let me know who it is that we have projected to start.
Yeah.
But I'll look at our Denver minutes here, and I'll give you guys a breakdown of.
I can tell you what I have. I mean, I have DeAndre Jordan for 18 minutes, and he's showing up in lineups. So, I mean,
it's just right. So we have for minutes. I think we have Zeke Naji projected to start.
Okay, then there you go. That's the difference.
Yeah, we have Zeke Naji projected for 21 minutes, and DeAndre Jordan projected for 9 minutes.
Well, that'll do it for you. Let me just say, volatile projections. Those are very volatile projections.
And that's not enough for me to get lineups with Naji or DeAndre Jordan.
No, Zeke Naji sucks, man. I do not like Zeke Naji. There was a moment in time where Zeke Naji was like fantasy relevant, and those were terrible, dark days.
When was that?
Oh God, I'd have to go back and look. I mean, we've been doing this long enough that there is no doubt. Zeke Naji, there was a glimpse where they were like, I can't remember if they were starting him next to Jokic or what it was that was going on, but he was definitely playing the 4 next to Jokic for like some amount of time. And he had like a couple of just ridiculous games. And then there was mega chalk and he's just fallen by the wayside. I'd have to go back and look, but like, I promise you, there was a moment in time where he was fantasy relevant and I hated it. He was like a flat 3K or like 3,500. And he would either be not starting, but he'd like walk into a majority of the minutes. Cause Denver's just, how many years has it been since Denver's had a bench? Even when they won the finals, they had no bench. It is absurd watching this team over the years because they just never have had it. And now this might be the first year it actually catches up to them eventually.
They haven't had a bench since Nurkic was the starting center and Jokic came off the bench. And then they tried both of them starting together. It didn't work out. They sent Jokic back to the bench and they're like, all right, this combination of players isn't going to work. They shipped off Nurkic for Mason Plumlee. I think they traded Nurkic and a first-round pick for Mason Plumlee, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And then they ended up starting Jokic. Plumlee was the backup and obviously worked out for them. They probably not the great, in hindsight, just from a value perspective, Nurkic and a first-round pick for Mason Plumlee wasn't the greatest value trade, but it ended up working out for them just by getting the more minutes to Jokic there. Jason sent us a message in Slack, by the way. He said he's currently projecting Zeke Naji to get the most minutes, but Sarge and Jordan also taking some of the center minutes. And he says as far as starters, not a massive amount of confidence in who's going to be the starter. He also said he wouldn't be surprised if Vlatko Kankar ends up moving into the starting lineup.
He's questionable for what it's worth. So like that would add a whole nother layer of insanity to this slate is having a guy who is currently listed as questionable and has played 2 minutes the entire season, just stepped into a starting unit. I'd say he's by far the least likely because he just hasn't been out there at all. That would be an indication they would try to keep whatever their bench rotation is intact, which makes no sense when Jokic is playing like 40 minutes a game. So he's by far the least likely guy. Jaden Ivey available to play. That's, again, I had no clue how that one was going to break, but that's nice that we don't have to deal with like Marcus Sasser at 3,700 or some garbage. I guess it would be Ron Holland 3,900 again, but really, really did not want that news.
All right, let's move on with more of the questions we have here. This one is from Chris Williams. He says, trying again today, since I guess I pissed off the Atone gods yesterday in NFL. Atone, folks. Bring yourself some good karma. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I mean, all of Washington sucked yesterday. Neither of the QBs were great, although Jalen Hurts had the late rushing touchdown. The optimal lineup had both of the Commanders running backs.
I didn't get my CSV
lineups to get to.
That was good.
So yeah, it was a tough showdown slate yesterday. But yeah, guys, listen to Chris. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And Chris also gifted out 10 YouTube memberships there. Big Boy IE says big position by position for cash. Big Boy, are you asking for FanDuel, DraftKings, both? We could do it for both sites. Eric, do you want to start with DraftKings and then go to FanDuel for our preferred cash players at each position? Do we want to go? Do you have lineups built out for
I'm
both
playing
sites?
cash on both sites today, which again,
Okay.
I can't remember the last time I did this. It's probably been 7 years since I played cash on both sites on the same night. But
And is this all because
something
someone
that
you
I'm
don't like tweeted at you and challenged you to a
Yes.
cash game?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's always a good way to dictate your life and what you put your money on is random people with what I assume is 18 followers on Twitter who you don't enjoy send you a message. It's like, all right, I have to change my entire Friday night activities now.
Because fuck them. That's why.
Yeah, just perfectly normal, perfectly healthy behavior when you're a public figure. That's definitely the best way to deal with trolls. All right, so let's start with DraftKings then, Eric, and we'll look at the point guard spot, which to me is really, really easy. The best overall point guard cash game playing, probably the best overall cash game. Well, two
Jamal Murray and
two
Peyton
players
Watson.
from Denver you absolutely must play in cash games. Jamal Murray at point guard.
Correct. Jamal Murray.
All right, so we're going to start Jamal Murray at point guard. And then also I'll ask you, Russell Westbrook, he's going to be quite popular.
Yes.
Is he somebody you would be playing in cash games today?
We shall see.
Okay. But anyway, point guard, Jamal Murray. Shooting guard, that would also be Jamal Murray to me because he has shooting guard eligibility as, I'm going to say Russell Westbrook at point guard and then Jamal Murray at shooting guard.
Yeah, here's the thing. There's a world where Denver starts Russell Westbrook. I think there's a world where they go small and they do the Peyton Watson thing. And again, we shall see. I purely throw that out there because I mean, you would absolutely have to have Russell Westbrook in cash if he was starting. I think coming off the bench, you don't have to have him, but he's still a very, very, very good option because you're taking 40 minutes and tons of production. Like the Russell Westbrook minutes, he's been overlapping with Nikola Jokic, like the best fantasy producer on planet Earth. He's been overlapping with him for a majority of those minutes because Jokic just never leaves the floor anymore. And now you just take him off the floor. Russell Westbrook's going to go out and try to cook in those minutes. So like my whole thing is that I have 2v2 on DK that I've kind of got to get the starting lineup to be able to sort out. But Russell Westbrook is still very, very cash viable.
Small forward, but this is just going to be a Denver fest. Michael Porter Jr.
Michael Porter Jr.
Power forward, because it's a Denver fest.
Actually, on DK, you don't have to. You could go Benedict Mathurin, but I would prefer Michael Porter Jr.
Power forward for me, that another Denver easy, Peyton Watson.
Correct. He's the easiest cash play on the slate.
I don't think there is a surefire cash play at center. There's not a single player projected for more than 20% ownership at center. And yeah, I mean, I don't have one guy who I think is a must play at center in cash. Yeah,
my current lineup is absurd as far as like who I have at center, but we'll see how it ends up panning out with the Denver news. I think that's going to dictate a lot.
All right, so now let's move on to the FanDuel side of things. Also, I might have missed it. Is your big cash head-to-head on FanDuel or DraftKings today?
DK is where it is, but I'm playing FanDuel cash as well because I just was like in the mood. And when I update one site and I do player projections for it the morning of, I'm going to do player projections for FanDuel too, because I hadn't done it like for my own. I usually just use our stuff, but I was like, ooh, I'm going to be locked in with the news today. I'm going to make sure that no matter what, if I don't win this head-to-head, it's going to be the worst day of my life. Like, I need to beat this guy. I hate him so much.
Worse than the Paul George day?
Worse than the Paul George day. You will come on and you will see actual tears on my face. I will be that distraught because I fucking can't stand this absolute dunce cap of a human being. He needs to go into the soil and I will send him there.
You do not deal with trolls well at all. I'll tell you what I do. If somebody I find to be annoying on Twitter, I mute them and I forget they exist.
No, this guy, I haven't even muted him or blocked him because it is so abhorrent how he is that I would rather know his movements and be able to subtly track them rather than be out in the dark in the wilderness knowing that he had some account that I didn't know was him. And then, you know what I do? I'm going to send him to the Shadow Realm today. I'm going to send him back from whence he came because I'm going to absolutely smash his face in.
Yeah, once again, perfectly normal, perfectly healthy behavior. Grayson Allen has been ruled out tonight. So that is somebody who was showing up in lineups for myself. So I'm going to have to update and take him out of things. So now that we have no Grayson Allen, Eric, I don't know that there's one particular value option who's all of a sudden like a smash type guy or anything like that. But this Suns team, it is for sure shorthanded. I think it was a little bit short-sighted to run all of the starters in the ground to open up the season.
Evan Mobley out. We got to go. We got to go.
Evan Mobley's out. So Grayson Allen's out. Evan Mobley's out. I mean, Evan Mobley being out, I want to see what the starting lineup is. I expect the starting Dean Wade probably starts, correct?
Yep. Dean Wade's my guess.
All right. I find this to be pretty simple. We are going to Karis LeVert plays a little bit more minutes now. That makes him look viable off the bench. Jared Allen looks terrific at center now. And then you get a little boost to Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland as well.
Yep. I like everything. This was when I was referencing my center, it was Jared Allen or Miles Turner that I was going to play at center in cash. Jared Allen, 6,800. I am playing in cash.
Yeah. Jared Allen, good point circling back on that. Jared Allen's the cash guy at center now.
Correct. It was, again, I didn't know which one I was going to click on. Because, again, Miles Turner, 6,900 looked good. It was fine. I liked it more, but I knew that piece was pending. So it was like, yeah, I either just, now I have $100 left over and I'll kind of be able to diversify that with the 2v2 that I'm still, so that clarifies the 1v1 that I had of the center position. There's still one other position where $100 matters where I'll do one thing or the other thing. We shall find out.
You know what also makes this easier is we had that Mobley downgrade the other day where I was very sure he wasn't going to play. And I had already thought about like, oh, well, Mobley isn't going to play. Here's what's going to happen. And now we just got the exact same scenario today. So it's something we already talked about the other day and went through. And now nothing really changes. But yeah, nothing changes versus the other day. Jared Allen goes from a guy who I don't even know if I had him in lineups. He's going to be my most rostered center now.
Yep, he is going to be my most rostered center by a mile. And obviously, I'm playing way more cash today. So yeah, he's my center at cash.
So let's go to FanDuel and do the position by position for best cash plays on FanDuel. Point guard, Jamal Murray.
Jamal Murray, yeah.
Shooting guard, Chris Dunn.
Chris Dunn.
Small forward for me, that is going to be Ryan Dunn now.
It's going to be Ryan Dunn 4K. He looks awesome. He played 28 minutes and now there's
3,900.
Oh, on FanDuel? We're doing FanDuel. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, we already did DraftKings.
Yeah, jumping over. Yeah, Ryan Dunn for sure at FanDuel. Yeah.
Power forward, Peyton Watson.
It is Peyton Watson by a mile.
And then center for me, that is going to be Jared Allen.
Jared Allen.
Oh, Jared Allen is center and power forward eligibility on FanDuel.
Amazing.
So you could also go Nurkic at center. Nurkic is going to look good.
I think I'm going to play Allen in power forward and cash on FanDuel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't. Just kind of saying some of the top guys with eligibility each position, but
crushed it.
All right, some more super chats here. Keys wants to know: can we trust DeAndre Hunter to perform at $5,200 on DraftKings? Not really.
I could care less how he perform when he in the bed. It's 50. It's fine.
Was that a yes or a no?
No.
All right, there we go. Do you know what the question was?
How does he perform when he in the bed?
What player are we talking about?
DeAndre Hunter.
All right, there we go. You got the pieces.
I was
together.
listening. What do you think I'm doing? I'm just.
I'm
blinded by
songs.
hate today. I'm blinded.
I think you're singing songs. I think you have rage in your heart, and all you're thinking about is this Twitter troll. I better beat him in this head-to-head that has way more the real estate in your mind than actual financial value to you. That aside, DeAndre Hunter, that's a no-go for me. He's barely played this year. I don't know realistically how many minutes he could play.
Yeah, I can't imagine many. Definitely hurts Jalen Johnson for what it's worth.
Let's see if we have a projections update, if everything is updated yet for the Suns and for the Cavs. Once it is, we'll let you guys know what those projection updates are. And not quite yet. It'll be coming soon. So let's go into Discord and see what some of the Discord questions are while we're waiting for those projections to update to bring to all of you guys. First off, we have a question. Oh, there's a handful of them here.
Ooh.
All right, here we go. G Doe wants to know, are any games or teams a fade, or is everyone in play? I haven't intentionally, this isn't like the other day where I intentionally removed the first game on the slate from my lineups. There's no scenario like that today.
There is nothing remotely close to that, no.
Money Prick wants to know, how are we feeling about Chris Dunn today?
Feel good about him. He looks good.
He started last game. He's going to start again. He played well last game as well. It seems that he's earned himself a role in the starting lineup and minutes. He's not my favorite play on the slate or anything, but he'll be in a quarter of my lineups or so, I assume, when everything updates.
Yeah, I mean, I was going through like the cash scenarios. Obviously, Ty Lue needs to go back from whence he came as well. The absolute most dunce cap of dunce cap coaches that we have ever seen. I mean, egregious stuff. It's an 8-point game, and you're playing absolute bench dudes to try to make a point with 6 minutes left in the game. No, you play to win the game. Duh. And you just lost a game outright because you didn't put Norman Powell and Chris Dunn and James Harden and Ivica Zubac's back on the floor. And it's just a joke because you wouldn't do the inverse if the bench just played poorly. You would just, oh, okay, well, I guess we just go back to our starters. Do the same thing anyway. It just made no sense. It's not like they made some 15-point comeback. Like, God damn it.
Projections update just came through 42 seconds ago. Cleveland Cavaliers, no surprise here. The biggest gainer, we got Jared Allen now. So 4 players standing out from the Cavaliers. You got Donovan Mitchell at 48.5 fantasy points at $8,200. You got Jared Allen now at nearly 40 fantasy points at $6,800. Darius Garland also at nearly 40 fantasy points at $7,100. Then you got Karis LeVert a little bit over 31 fantasy points at $5K. So all of those guys are looking good. And then if you look at some of the value options, there's fringe guys. You got George Niang around 17 fantasy points. You got Dean Wade at 17.5 fantasy points. Isaac Okoro at 18 fantasy points. If you had a lineup or two with these guys, it's not the end of the world, but none of them priority value options. But those other guys for the Cavs, most notably, Donovan Mitchell, Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, Darius Garland, all guys are going to show up in lineups for me now.
Yeah, they look awesome. I really like the Cavs. Remember, this is Chicago on the other side. And for those who have missed the first 3-4 weeks of the season, Chicago is playing at like a breakneck pace, despite the fact that they have old geezer Nikola Vucevic out there at center. 105 possessions per 48 minutes. It was like 108, 109 a couple weeks ago. And I mean, it's just insane what we're getting from some of these guys. Less minutes for Ayo Dosunmu is also good because he's the one good defender on this team. And he played all of 25 minutes in a competitive spot against the Knicks. And it's just wild because they just keep rolling out Josh Giddey, Kobe White, and closing lineups. Those are not defensively forward individuals. So it's going to be an awesome spot for those guards in Cleveland. They're 10.5-point favorites for a reason.
Phoenix Suns also updated in the projections, the big gainer. Ryan Dunn is now projected for 26.5 fantasy points at 4K. So another value option who's looking pretty solid for tonight's slate. Also a gain for Royce O'Neal in our projections, but he's kind of expensive at $5,600. So he's expensive on FanDuel and DraftKings. Not really a priority considering what his salary is. Ryan Dunn is the guy that we are going to want to be rostering there. Anything else that stands out to you about the Phoenix or Cleveland projections?
Phoenix or Cleveland projections. I would say the one that probably gets slept on the most on the Cleveland side is Karis LeVert. We have a much higher optimal percentage. He's 5K with shooting guard, point guard, shooting guard. Probably doesn't matter as much because Donovan Mitchell looks really, really good, and he's got shooting guard eligibility as well. But his boom percentage is really, really nice. And I usually take my columns and I put them side by side. And he's showing up as one of the best tournament plays on the entire slate right now. So Karis LeVert, I think that was a great update from our data team.
Yep. And Jason also just messaged us that ownership is updated. So let's go ahead and look at ownership. And then after we get that
Holy
ownership,
shit, George Niang is starting. What in the flying fuck?
All right. So we have, Garland, Mitchell, Okoro, Niang. Oh, I'm going to like Niang now that he's starting. He's a better fantasy producer than Dean Wade.
Yeah, and he knocks down shots. And Dean Wade, he is a great, great defender. We're talking 99th percentile defender in the NBA. But George Niang has one job and one job only, and that is to allow for floor spacing and knock down open threes. So George Niang, God, of course he's 3,100. So this is just another piece of value on a slate where we have value. I said before, I didn't have a lot of 3K guys that I liked. I had a lot of 4K, 5K guys. George Niang's probably the first guy sub 4K that I'm like, yeah, we definitely want to be looking at it.
Yeah. So we got.
Yeah, we had to have had Wade projected.
Yeah, I just messaged Jason to see what we had projected. Because if he was smarter than us and had Niang projected to start instead of Wade, then I'll
quit.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, he had Wade projected to start. So I'm going to have to double back on that in a second, and I won't kick off another Sims run. I mean, there'd be no point until we have the Niang starting update there. So that'll be updating a little bit. But basically, it'll be Niang will project for, just going off the top of my head, I'm guessing somewhere around 20 fantasy points is going to be a projection for George Niang. And Dalton Connect.
Yeah, I mean, George,
for Rui
so,
Hachimura.
I mean, obviously, George Niang's another Iowa State guy. I've been obsessed with George Niang. Just, he gave us one of the best tournament runs in Iowa State history. But this just kind of speaks to what Kenny Atkinson has done for this Cleveland team. If you haven't been paying attention to that as well, they are one of the best offensive teams. Yeah, you heard me. Cleveland, last year, top tier in defense. They're 7th in adjusted defensive rating this year, which is great, but they are 3rd in adjusted offensive rating. That is why they are 13-0. Kenny Atkinson, absolutely one of the worst fires ever. The Brooklyn Nets should be ashamed of themselves.
He never would have gotten fired if it's so funny in hindsight, but the big controversy was starting Jared Allen over DeAndre Jordan. If that doesn't happen, I mean, it seems like at the time Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving didn't like him, but whatever. Only 13 minutes left to go here. Want to tell you guys,
a good coach.
We are about to get a projections update coming through. I know Jason's pushing it through with Niang starting instead of Dean Wade. If you guys want to get easy access to all the tools we have here at Stokastic, sign up with one of our affiliate links down below in the YouTube description box. It could be a sports book we've got in there. We've got a bunch of pick'em sites. So you might be in a state that doesn't have sports books. It's going to have pick'em sites. You might be in a state that doesn't have pick'em sites, but has sports books. Any of these partners, sign up for the first time using the links that we have below. Sign up, deposit, play with one of these partners, and then take a screenshot of your first bet over there. Email it over to support. News God's going to see it. And then what you do is you pick a sport that you want a free month of core access to, and these stack as well. So if you want to do 6 of these sites, sign up for 6 of them for the first time. It has to be through that link down below in the YouTube description box. And then you also have to reach out to support, or else they're not going to know that you guys signed up. Do that, send in the screenshot, and you get 1 free month of core access to a sport of your choosing. And you can sign up for as many of these spots as you want. Really easy way. Click on one of those links, sign up, link down below in the YouTube description box. And I see Jason typing to us, which must mean there it is. Projections are updated.
Beautiful.
So let's go and look at that, and then we'll do the nuke of the night, Eric.
Yep.
Let's see, where's George Niang?
By the way, nuke of the night has changed. It was Trey Murphy. I think Trey Murphy is live for 35 minutes tonight. I think Trey Murphy... I mean, I made Trey Murphy a thing once upon a time, played him at 1% and won 30K on FanDuel. So I felt good about that once upon a time. Thank you, Rinpack. We talked about him at length. He got paid. He got absolutely paid. They were going to take their dear sweet time bringing him back, considering they are the walking wounded. But Trey Murphy III is not the nuke of the night anymore. We have shifted.
All right. What is the nuke of the night then? Jacob, play the animation. Give Eric a little bit of time to ruminate on what the new nuke of the night is. Eric, we knew what the nuke of the night was going to be, but who is it actually?
It's Donovan Mitchell. How do you not love Donovan Mitchell in this spot? You're getting to go up against a backcourt of Kobe White and Josh Giddey. And Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland have just been playing on another planet. And it makes no sense that in this spot, we're getting an 8,200 Donovan Mitchell now with Evan Mobley out. And that was kind of a big dictator for me here because I was running my rates and updating my sheet here. Evan Mobley off the floor. You are going to see unlimited usage, unlimited opportunity. In fact, you see a 1.4 fantasy point producer on DraftKings in 1,304 minutes that they have played together over the last year and change. It is unbelievable how good Donovan Mitchell looks at 8,200. He will be in cash. He will be in tournaments. He will be in everything that I do tonight. Donovan Mitchell, your nuke of the night.
Yeah, so a new one for me as well, considering this was not somebody who I would have been considering just a few minutes ago. But now that he's starting, and this news came out pretty late, George Niang is almost the flat min today. He's very cheap on DraftKings. He's playable on FanDuel as well, but because of his three-point shooting ability and the lower min price on DraftKings, he looks better there. But Niang's starting, and with this news coming out, what he was announced to start 12 minutes before lock. He's not going to be nearly as popular as he would have been if he was announced as a starter an hour or so ago. So I like George Niang as a really good value option, especially because while there is good value on a team like Denver, Eric, we don't have punt value plays that really look great for the night. So there's a lot of good players to be rostering on Cleveland. And I agree with you. Donovan Mitchell looks great. Jared Allen's going to be in a bunch of my lineups. But now George Niang as a $3,100 player on DraftKings, a price point we just didn't have access to that many players. He is now going to be in a bunch of my lineups, and he's going to open up the ability for me to pay up for a lot more studs.
Fucking love it. Dude, this slate is awesome. I love this slate. I'm bypassing a lot of these popular Miami indie pieces too. Like, I'm looking at other places where Bam Adebayo is really popular and it makes no sense to me. Miles Turner, I totally get that one. Benedict Mathurin, totally get that one. Like, I get a couple of these guys, but I'm not getting to nearly as much of that game as what I was anticipating coming into this slate.
Well, better values opened up.
That's exactly it. Like, I'm just going to be backloading lineups and living with the result. Like, everybody else can have fun. If Miami somehow gets that ridiculous Tyler Hero game again, I will be in complete shambles, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I am just waiting for the ownership. As soon as that goes, I'll kick off a Sims run, and then we'll be good to go heading into lock. Let's get to more of your guys' questions. See, there's a couple of super chats that came in. First one here is from TL, says, please drop a bit fewer F-bombs. Got my son in the room playing with trains. I know I'm degenerate. All right, Eric, no more talking about Noah Moon because I don't think you can help yourself.
This is Noah's fault. Everything in life is Noah's fault. Your son isn't named Noah, right? Then I would, see, I can't even stop myself when I bring this guy up. He makes me so mad. I see red.
Chris Williams left us a super chat. It says only 525 likes with over 3,000 people watching. That's thousands of people who don't want good karma. Hey, it's your money, not mine. Chris is right. The easiest way to win GPPs on FanDuel and DraftKings or Yahoo Owners Box, wherever you're playing, it's very clearly to hit the like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That is the way to bring yourself good karma and start winning ASAP. So go ahead and do that if you guys haven't already. It's also totally free for you. It takes none of your time whatsoever. So there's no way that you guys shouldn't be doing it. Helps support us. It helps us in the YouTube algorithm, and we do appreciate it. Let's see what we have here for other questions in Discord. We've got Rabashua wants to know, for FanDuel GPP, Tyus Jones or Scary Terry, Russ, Karis LeVert. Yeah, of those guys, Russell Westbrook and Karis LeVert are my two highest priorities. I think both of them are really strong GPP plays, Karis LeVert being the newer one, considering Evan Mobley being out.
Yeah, what you said.
See what we have for our next question. It is coming to us from Stokes. He said, I missed the start of the show. How are we handling the Joker news? Loading up on Denver or backloading? Yeah, you want to get a lot of exposure to Denver. Then he says also he's getting a lot of Dunn in the Sims. Is someone out for the Clippers? So Chris Dunn started last game and played really well, played a good amount of minutes. It seems that's going to be the case going forward.
That is correct.
Gator Nation says, late joining the show, but are you guys fading any early game tonight? No. Einstein wants to know, any interest in Tyus Jones tonight? Minimal. He'll be in lineups, but not as a core option. I think my last run, I had him in 6% of lineups.
We'll say Duke just starting to infest the NBA, and soon Cooper Flag, the great Cooper Flag, will be just in the NBA smashing.
Oh man, is the montage will get an edition next year? You know that.
Oh my God, he will be. He's
gonna break the exotic player of the night segment.
Jesse's honestly. So I hate Noah Moon. I might hate Jesse even more, which is weird because we're actually friends. But like. Giving me shit about Donovan Mitchell being the new
BSQD left the super chat. He said, "Can we please get a few F-bombs in the room? Grandma's here and she loves colorful language. Also, is it cool if I have a lot of salary left over in DK cash? You should not be leaving salary on the table in cash. Not a significant. I don't know what you mean by a lot, because that's kind of like a moving target. It can mean many different things. But if you are leaving like $500, $600, $700 in salary on the table in cash, you've made a mistake."
Not a lot, baby girl, just a little bit. Yeah, I have 100 left on the table right now, but it's got a swap that's kind of pending. There's nothing that I'm playing from the first 3 games in cash right now. There is too much good stuff coming up later. There's just no point.
If we go back into the super chats, one final one from Salah Abdallah. Salah wants to know, for a FanDuel GPP1 lineup, is it okay to have Niang and Allen in the same lineup, and then also LeVert or Brandon Boston and leave 5th? I don't know why everybody keeps asking us.
Carl Anthony Towns is out. No.
Cat ruled out now.
No.
So, I mean, I'm just going to, I'm not going to have time to run a whole nother sim for Cat being ruled out. So that's just going to have to be addressed after lock. By the way, another reason too, guys, so we are just 3 minutes to go until lock here. Eric and I are going to be finishing out the final few minutes. Then Josh and I are going to be on playback. We're going to have player projections and ownership projections for the Cat news in, I don't know, probably like 5 minutes or so. But the sims and everything, it's not going to be totally updated in the next couple of minutes. So stick around for the playback show, and we'll give you guys all of the updates there. But yeah, Cat is not going to be playing today. Eric, you appear to be in shambles.
This is the worst thing that's ever happened. Do you all understand that we're going to play a guy named Jericho Sims at 3,100, and he's
Deuce McBride also out.
He is so. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Campaign in, Jalen Brunson in.
Matt Ryan at 3K is like insane right now. Campaign at 3,300 looks good. I mean, this is just the worst news that I've ever seen in my life. Jericho Sims and George Niang at 3,100 each, and I have to pick between the two of them now, and we have to figure something out.
You just play in cash whoever's starting of the two is the preference. This is your fault for playing cash games. You did this to yourself. More super chats, by the way. Also, solid. Don't leave $1,500 in salary on the table. You're playing one GPP lineup. As far as the other parts of your question, yes, Allen and Niang totally fine to have together, and I prefer Karis LeVert to Brandon Boston. Then Jordan Rhodes wants to know how much Nurkic is too much Nurkic for a FanDuel GPP. Boy, I don't have like a set number off the top of my head. But there's so much other value that's opening up. I don't know if you have more than like 40% Nurkic, that might be too much, but I don't have an exact answer for you. Do you have a number off the top of your head, Eric?
For what?
For
what? What's the question?
He wants to know how much Nurkic is too much for a FanDuel GPP.
For a FanDuel GPP, you probably shouldn't have over like, I'll let you know. I had 8% Nurkic. He was the most popular. I mean, he's showing up like 90% in the Sims right now. I would say you could play, I don't know, play half of Nurkic. I mean, I have no idea what to do with Jericho Sims. What is he on FanDuel? He's center only. So he's 3,700 center only and could legitimately play 40 minutes today.
Jericho Sims will start for Cat.
And I don't want to do this.
Well, we're about to get some projections updates coming in now that that's official. M Grizzly wants to know, are we doing any boosts? Here's what I did. I just ran everything I could right up until lock. I uploaded it. Everything's about to change anyway. So I'm just playing what I have. And now I'm going to be updating everything when projections and ownership update. What now?
Jericho Sims starting. Do you understand? They don't have any other person who can play center. They have no one else who can play center.
So we're going to play him. We're going to play him, and we're going to have fun. We're going to have so much fun.
No, he's going to put up 8 fantasy points in 40 minutes because he is the worst basketball player I've ever seen.
Oh, we're going to have so much fun. It's going to be Jericho Sims.
Josh Hart rebounding ladder.
There's going to be this guy like there's somebody on the roster named Ariel Huckporty. I don't even know if that's a lady or a guy. Ariel.
Dude,
he's going to get a real person. It's going to be so much fun.
What is a Huckporty? Huckporty.
It's going to be so much fun. So projections, they're going to be updating in a second. Josh and I are going to cover it over on Playback. So guys, if you haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel here on YouTube. Join Josh and I over on Playback. I'm about to drop the link into the YouTube chat because I know people are always asking us for that link. Here it is. It's going into the chat right now. Oh, no, never mind. That's the wrong one. I am doing a poor job of multitasking. Here we go. Now I've got the right link.
Show.
There we go. Click on that link. Click on that link and join Josh and I over on Playback. We're about to go over some of the biggest nonsense ever. Join us on Playback. YouTube. Done. Playback. Starting. See you guys over there. Thank you, Jacob, for producing. Everybody else, if you aren't joining us on Playback, you're making a mistake. Have a good weekend. Josh and I are going live. Eric's having a mental breakdown. Everything's right in the world.